Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Try F podcast, where we try not to F the podcast up. So last week we had a pretty lengthy debate about the flat Earth. I think we were going to react to a debate. That was my phone. We were going to react to a debate from somebody else tonight, but Cody had a Christmas party and had to back out, so we're having to change plans. And so what we're doing instead is we are going to react to something we really should have reacted to a couple weeks ago. That's Tucker Carlson's demonic encounter, and we'll start with that. And then, since it's Christmas and we're a new channel and we're shamelessly chasing trends, we're gonna do a History of Santa Claus review. And I'll save my contemptuous thoughts for Santa till later Santa. In the podcast. Yeah, yay Santa. You know, since we break this thing up into 30-minute chunks anyway, later in the week, I'll save my contempt for the introduction of that portion of the podcast. So I guess for now we're going to start off with Tucker Carlson's supernatural experience. But before we get into that, Trevor, how are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little scatterbrained. Sweet. Not sure how coherent I'm going to be tonight, but I'm okay.
Scatterbrained is good for you.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know about that. I don't know. Yeah, no, I have to say for the most part I'm pretty good. Just kind of plugging along, I guess. I really don't have a whole lot to say as far as my mental state, other than just not knowing what to do. So,
we're figuring it out as we go. So.
Yeah. So you had some thoughts about old Tucker Carlson and what happened. So I guess we'll just start right there and get into it. So let me switch us over here really quick.
Yeah, let's get into this video.
All right. So here.
And I've already seen it. So
you've already seen it? I actually have not watched it all the way through.
Okay.
So this is my first time reacting to it. So let's see how this goes.
Do you think the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good?
That's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you?
Oh yeah, I had a direct experience with it.
In the milieu of journalism or just?
Nope, in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled. Physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon. Or by something unseen that left.
Is that right?
Claw marks on my sides, on my...
So it left physical marks?
Oh, they're still there. Yeah. A year and a half ago.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I wasn't. I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe and I thought I was going to suffocate, and I walked around outside, and then I walked in and my wife and dogs had not woken up, and they're very light sleepers. And then I had these terrible pains on my rib cage and on my shoulder, and I was just in my boxer shorts, and I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms.
Can you pause it right
and
there?
on my left shoulder.
Hang on a minute.
And they're bleeding.
Wait.
I've got so many computers open I can't remember what to close.
So many computers. I thought you only got one.
Monitors. Leave me alone. It's like a starship in here. I can't figure out what I'm doing. So.
Monitors. Oh, okay.
All right, so what's the issue here, man?
Well, there's not really an issue. Let me just first say I respect Tucker Carlson a lot.
Yeah.
I love the guy. He's all about truth.
Right.
You know, what's true, this is true, and he reports the truth. And I have nothing against the guy whatsoever. I like listening to stories like this one. You know, demonic encounters and testimonials about things like this happening.
Yeah.
But for the first red flag that I've got right there is pretty much everyone else's, as far as I know, encounters when they get scratched. It's just three marks instead of 4. So that was the first red flag, and then I'm not saying that he's not telling the truth by any means, or he might be far-fetching for views or something. But if you, I lost sight of the video itself, but if you scroll down in the description somewhere of the video, there's a link to another website.
My apologies. I had this on the wrong Dad Blame monitor, and I forgot we're on
That's
share
all right.
screen. That's
So
my
if you-
mistake. So
if
what
you're right
website
there-
are we doing?
So if you just stay here on the channel and just scroll down
Yeah.
in the description where it says more, there
Okay.
you can click there, and that link, that
All right,
first
let me
link there to watch the full clip.
Oh, hang on a
Visit.
minute. I can't I can't quite show it yet. So there's a link at the bottom of the description.
No, it's at the top.
At the top of the description, my mistake. And it says Christianitiesmovie.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go there, it's basically the same. It is the same clip, but this is basically like a whatever you call it. You know how for movies they do like a showing of part of the movie.
It's a preview.
Preview. So this is basically a preview of a full documentary. And I can't wait till the full documentary comes out. But anyways, that was the second red flag. Is he doing it? Is he telling the story because the interviewer asked him, or is he doing it for documentary, things? And it's just his story is just a little different than all the other encounters that I watched and listened to.
Right.
That's just me personally.
Yeah.
There's billions of people on Earth.
Yeah. Well, I'm inclined to believe him. The main reason that I believe him is because he said something very interesting. When the guy asked if he was afraid, he was like, "No, I was confused." And I relate to that because we talked about, our stuff back in Halloween. And I remember when this crap started happening to me when I was a kid, I didn't know enough to be afraid at first, right? I was very confused and just kind of not sure what was happening. And so the fact that he used that word specifically, like that describes exactly how I felt when that crap started happening to me. Because you don't if you don't grow up in the what world would you even call it?
Supernatural.
The supernatural. Yeah, if you're not familiar with this stuff and then it starts happening to you, like you don't know enough to be afraid. Like there's no red guy with horns jumping to going, "Hi, I'm Satan. I'm gonna sit on your chest now." There's nothing like that. So it's nothing obvious, and so it's like this brand new set of experiences, and you just don't know enough to really be scared. And finally, it gets bad enough that the being kind of jumps the shark, and you realize it is demonic, and then you start looking for solutions. But there at the beginning, you just don't know. So
Right.
So I don't know.
Yep.
But as for the 4 claws thing, I'm with you. I've heard the whole like it's got to be 3 claws and it's got to be 3 knocks and it's got to be 330. I don't think there's a hard fast spiritual rule like it has to be that stuff. I think they do that stuff to mess with people, But I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
think it has to be that way, you know?
Well, and I've actually like looked at, like, kind of did my own little personal research on it. If you look at your hand, right?
Yeah.
When you actually claw someone, these three fingers are actually longer than your pinky. So if a normal person claws someone, it's those three main fingers that actually hit. And then you gotta get real deep to get your thumb and pinky in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever clawed him could have had the same length pinky as his other claws, which would make sense.
Yeah, that kind of gets into like the nature of this demonic stuff, though. Like it's really hard to talk about this because it's like you're dealing with entities that don't have a body, and
Not
it's
to
hard.
mention you can't see them unless they want you to.
Yeah, and so it's like, do these things actually have a substance that our brains can't detect? Like maybe there are beings that exist on a different frequency of light that we can't see with our eyes, and maybe they're on the other side of that, and there is actually physically something there. Or is this some kind of entity that exists in the realm of the mind, let's say, but I mean it's real, but it exists in the plane of thought, perhaps. And
Right.
it's like, this is a weird analogy, but it's like the Matrix. You die in the Matrix, you die in real life. It's the kind of thing where it's like they're doing things and your body is reacting as if the thing were there, but it's not actually there. It's like projecting its intentions onto you somehow. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's just hard to talk about this stuff because you're dealing with entities that don't exist in the physical, and yet they're interacting with the physical. They're real, and this is just the debate I've had on, for myself, because on the one hand, like when we talked about what we saw, we saw things completely differently. I was seeing like two-dimensional, almost cartoon-like creatures.
Yeah.
And they would show up for just, like, it wasn't a glimpse, but it was like a fraction of a second longer than a glimpse. Like it was just long enough that you knew it was there. And then once you were looking at it long enough to confirm that it was there, then it was gone. So it was like something like a second, 2 seconds, something like that. It's a two-dimensional cartoon-like image for a second to 2 seconds that would disappear.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if cartoon is the right way. Just oversaturated colors. You know what I mean? Like it didn't look real, but it was oversaturated. You know what I'm saying? So, but you were seeing, if I remember correctly, like fog, right?
Yeah. For most of the time it was fog for me. And then I did have, when I was younger, I thought I would see like actual physical beings, but that was way back when my imagination was wild, and so
Yeah.
it was hard for me to distinguish what was real and not real.
Well, that's the other thing too. I mean, I don't know if I told all the stories from when I was a little kid, but it happened in waves for me. Like the first time, like the first round of it, the first thing I ever saw, like in my life, was the Reaper. I told that story back in Halloween. That was the cartoon Reaper with the scythe that walked from one end of the bedroom to the other. It was at the foot of the bed, paced the room. That was the first thing I ever saw in my life, which is pretty dramatic, being the first thing ever. Second thing was kind of this Lego-like entity. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was it was the weirdest looking creature I have ever seen, and I don't even. Basically, it was just like, oh man, you remember those old wooden toys that they used to make, like the
Oh yeah, I still have one.
yeah, they
somewhere.
had like the cheap head, and then they kind of had the cone cylinder-like body with the really cheap arms.
Yeah.
But they had usually like a cheap hat carved over the head.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was this it was this flippin', it wasn't wood, it looked plastic. But it came in, it had the little cylinder body, the little wooden head with the painted face on it, and then it had like a fedora-like hat on top of it. It comes in, and this happened twice. So once it was a dream, or at least one time I think it was a dream. The first time I think it was real. But it comes in, and it starts banging on my leg. Like it takes those little cheap wooden hands that it had, and it comes up to beside my bed, and it starts hitting my thigh, and I obviously very confused because I don't feel anything actually hitting me. So I start trying to swipe at it, and my hand goes right through the thing. And I do this 3 or 4 times, and it turns around and goes around the corner of the door in my bedroom. And then in the instance when I think it was a dream, as it was rounding that corner, because it was the exact same thing that happened twice, and the second time, which I think was a dream, as it was rounding that corner, or that bend in the doorway, or going, I guess, turning through the doorway, let's put it that way, it actually morphed from this wooden thing to like this giant black cloak that swooped out of the room. Yeah. And so I think that was a dream the second time. And then after that, aside from the shadow thing years and years later, I would get like those, like what we talked about before, those second and a half glimpses, but it was just long enough for you to know it was real. Where you get like full-blown shadow people. One time it was Greg holding a butcher knife, that kind of thing.
Well, that's creepy.
Yeah, and it was just constant. Like after those first 2 really big dramatic ones, it was just the black shadow things, but it was just constant all the time. Fraction of a second, but every night something weird,
Huh.
And so I say all of that to say, you compare my experience to yours.
Yeah,
there's nothing in common.
Yeah,
very different.
My very first encounter was when I was like 2 or 3. But I was just in my room, and I thought I saw a face staring at me through my window. So I got up and ran to my parents' bedroom and jumped in their bed and woke them up. And
yeah,
my dad, Daniel, he got up, grabbed his gun, and opened the front door and popped off a couple rounds. And he's like, "Ghost is dead. Go back to bed." Or he said he scared it off or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah. I should add as a point of clarity. I didn't see like walking like things of butcher knives coming towards me every night. Like I guess I should add this clarity point. From then on, well, most of the time it was shadows darting along the walls. Like little things that you'd see long enough to know that were there, but weren't there for like a super long period of time.
Yeah.
So, and you saw a face in the window, which is terrifying. So,
and what was weird is it looked like another one of my cousins.
Oh, it looked like one of your cousins, really?
Yeah. It's actually Jared's older brother, Michael. Do you remember him?
Jared's older brother, Michael.
Jared.
Oh, Michael. Yes, I never actually met Michael.
Okay.
I met, obviously me and Jared were friends for years and years, but I don't think I ever met Michael. I mean, we're still friends, but I just haven't seen him in a while. But so there was that. But the point is, the fact that you and I saw such dramatically different things, because obviously, I believe you. I assume you believe me. But we saw very dramatically different things. There's no pattern there.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So there has to be a reason for that. Why is there no pattern? That makes me wonder if it's some kind of entity projecting things that will scare the person personally. You know what I mean? Like things that would mess with each individual entity.
Like my spider story.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like it's a tailor-made haunting, you might say.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder if that's what's going on. But at the same time, there's been little anomalies that make me think there really is something in the room with you. So, lots of times when this stuff was going on, I would, have instances where my eyes would track with whatever was in the room. There was nothing there. I wasn't seeing anything. But it was just like when somebody throws a ball or an object at you and your eyes automatically, track the motion. It was the same thing.
Whatever that was.
Yeah, you could track the motion of the thing in the room, but there was nothing there. And that always made me feel like there actually was something in the room. So I go back and forth. I don't know if these things actually take some kind of space or exist in some kind of plane, or if it's purely, I guess you would say, maybe like a thought-based entity that projects stuff that would bother you personally. I don't know. But I guess I say all that to say, when you're talking about those kinds of entities where you don't even know if they actually are physical in the sense that they take up some kind of space, I mean, it could give 4 scratches, it could give 17 scratches, it could give 3. I think the numbers are just kind of random. That, or they're attributed to some kind of symbolism,
Yeah, like they're trying to make fun of the Trinity or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Because it just, I don't think they're certainly not physical the way we are.
Yeah.
But what kind of space they adhere to and what kind of forms they can take, I really don't know. Like, I just don't have any clue about how any of that would work. So, of course, there's always a possibility that we're both just insane. But
Thank you.
yeah. So that's just something that's always, I think about that. But but the big tell for me that made me kind of believe Tucker Carlson was the fact that he said he was confused, because I remember that confusion. Like, you just didn't. Like, I'm mainly talking about the sleep paralysis stuff. Like, when they start like actually attacking you and you're not just seeing something. Like, that's so confusing.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Don't like it when it happens.
Yeah, I don't need to repeat it. So, all right, let's go ahead and finish this here. So let me make the transition.
We're finishing.
Yeah.
They were bleeding.
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks. And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. But yeah, that happened. So I'm not from a world where things like that happen. I never heard of anything like that happening before. I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did? Okay, that was going to be my question.
Yeah. I don't understand to this day. I'm not going to put it.
You didn't try to refute the spiritual part in your own mind. You went right into the.
Well, it didn't make any sense, and it doesn't now. But I'm not from a, what do they call it, faith tradition that talks about things like that or even acknowledges their existence. Like, there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
What was the next day like?
Well, the next morning I woke up and I thought, that was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And then I saw blood on my sheets and I realized that was not a dream at all. I called my assistant, who was like the only evangelical Christian I know, well enough to call with something bizarre like that, totally bizarre like that. And
I never bled. I can say that much. I never bled. Never had anything like actually scratch me or do anything that intense to me.
Yeah.
So, I take it you haven't bled either, sir.
I don't have anything that I can recall where I bled, but there's stuff from a more personal nature, but that's for
Gotcha.
another story, another time.
Gotcha.
So.
All right, we'll keep going then.
she said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed by demons. What? What are you even talking about? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not leaving anything out, and I'm not pretending to understand that. I can only say what happened to me, and that did happen to me. And then I was seized with this very intense desire to read the Bible, which I then started without any study aids or anything. I bought a Bible that didn't have any. I'm not interested in editorializing in the Bible. I just want to read it and see what's in there myself. I have very low levels of trust for Christian pastors, most of whom, I'm just not a fan at all. And sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. And so I don't want to hear other people's opinions. I just want to see what's in there. And so I spent a year and a half reading it, and then I started rereading it. And it was just a transformative experience for me, but I'm not, holding myself out as some.
That is something we need to point out. And it's one of the more depressing things about being a Christian, is you would think that when this stuff happens, and it happens to a lot of people from what we understand, you would think the church would be the people to go to. They'd be the go-to source for all this sort of stuff. But really, most of the time, you don't get a lot of answers from them.
Well, I mean, it goes back to the passage. My people will, I think it was Jesus talking about it, where he said, my people will suffer from lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And personally, I believe this is what he was talking about, was the supernatural realm, if you will. The lack of knowledge of it.
Yeah. I
And
wonder if it's a fear of evil. And that bothers me if that's the case, because we shouldn't be afraid of evil. I said it in the previous episodes, I'll say it again. They're really cockroaches once you understand what you're dealing with. Like, they're not, like, compared to the name of Jesus Christ, they're not anything. You know, you say Christ's name, they're done. Like, you can't. If you're a Christian and you have the authority to use his name,
yeah.
you know, they're not like, dualism is nonsense. Like, they're not equal countervailing forces to the good.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, and you're able to, you understand that you can rebuke them, you have the authority to rebuke them because you are a Christian, goes away pretty fast. And after having to deal with that kind of stuff at my own place several times, I mean, we haven't had supernatural, like, stuff I would consider outright supernatural stuff in years, at least in my household, and it still takes, there's still other things that kind of you could say might be supernatural, like dreams and stuff. We talked about a dream earlier today, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But as far as like demonic entities, slamming cabinets, stomping around and all that nonsense, orbs, I mean, really...
Poltergeist activity.
Yeah, I mean, really, there hasn't been anything like that in a very, very long time. Unless you want to count the creepy alien lights, which I don't know what they are. They could be drones. I kind of think the military's got a bunch of drones. I don't know if you've been on Twitter or not, but there's just like all sorts of footage of lights moving and beeping and bopping around the sky, just all over the place.
Drones.
Yeah, I think it's drones, man. I think it's drones. I think the government's just messing with people at this point.
Oh yeah, they can create all types of drones however they want to.
Yeah.
And then they're, what's it called, where they can project certain lights
Holograms.
from, well, not just holograms, but they can project lights for miles and images for miles up in the sky.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then some of the videos coming out, it just winds up being somebody flying a kite with little lights on it.
Yeah, I think
Which
there's
is
a lot
pretty funny.
of chicanery going on right now. But anyway, I guess we need to stay focused on the supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
No, I don't. The thing that gets you into trouble is ignoring it and pretending like it's nothing.
Which,
Or going out and graveyarding, which is stupid.
excuse me, sorry.
You're all right. Yeah.
Oh, graveyarding is fun.
Yeah, if you don't want to sleep for like a month. It's horrid. Yeah, I mean, like, you can either borrow trouble or ignore the trouble, and that'll just create more of it. But once you acknowledge what it is and you ask Christ for his help, that begins the process of making sure it goes away.
Well,
It could be a long process, but that process does begin.
I will say this. It depends on your heart posture. Because if you just say, in Jesus' name, get out, sometimes they'll just laugh at you and say, no, your heart's not in the right place. I can do what I want.
That's when I just repeat myself. My thinking was, well, my heart will get in the right place eventually if I just keep jabbering. So,
Yeah.
And you don't like it. You don't like hearing that name over and over again. So,
No.
that's one of the
Well,
reasons I always played like Christian music in the house too. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can get you to leave, but I can get you to hate being here. So, anyway. So I guess we ought to finish up Tucker Carlson's video and move on. So hang on here.
Okay.
someone from whom you could get theological advice because I'm
Sure,
not.
of course.
I mean, I don't know. I don't understand any of it. But yeah,
Do you
that
think
happened
God
to me.
allowed the demon?
I have no idea what happened. All I know is I was dead asleep with my wife and dogs, and I woke up with claw marks on my rib cage underneath my arms, and it didn't even make sense. My arms would, anyway, whatever. I'm not, no one has to believe me. I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
But that happened to me, and so I just was like, wow, that's real. Whatever that is, I'm even not sure what it is.
It's
But
very real. And so then that presence of that evil
yeah.
launches something.
Okay, so I guess that's the ad. So, alrighty, hang on a minute here. So that was Tucker Carlson's story.
Yeah. Like
Trevor.
I said, I
Sorry.
can't wait for. Sorry.
No, I was just going to
I
ask if
can't-
you had any final thoughts, and you jumped right into it. So,
Yeah, I can't wait for the full story and documentary to come out. I'm super excited about it.
yeah, I mean, I'd be curious as to what it's about.
And I went back and because that video is a month old now.
Yeah, we're getting at this a little late. We should have hit this a while ago.
Yeah.
So,
But I've been kind of trying to watch and see when it comes out, but it's on their
okay,
main website. So
all
I
right.
forgot what it's called.
I don't know either. Hang on a minute. We should probably do a plug for it since it was called
Mentioned it.
Christianity's movie. Not Christie's movie. Shut up, Google.
There was no space in it. So it was
Christianity's. Here we go. Movie Tucker.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do a plug for it. Come on, give me an ad. You're so good about ads all the other times except when I need you. Google.
Well, Google doesn't want us seeing it, so.
I guess not. All right, so let's see. Give me a link. Here we go. All right, if
there.
you want to find out more, ladies and gentlemen, go to christianitiesmovie.com/home, and I'll give you a good place to start. All
There you
right. So, I know this is a live stream, but we break these things up into smaller chunks throughout the week. So, I'm going to end the first episode here. So, guys,
Bye.
thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Now, Trevor, you can say bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Adios. Okay. So, if you don't want us to do that every 30 minutes, get people
Just
to
say so.
subscribe to this channel so we can actually do this for a living, because we have jobs and we don't have time to do a 2-hour live stream and then on top of that 30-minute videos throughout the week. So yeah, subscribe, help us build our following and all that good stuff. So,
Or follow, then subscribe.
or follow and subscribe, or subscribe and follow. I don't, it doesn't.
Or just like it. That would help too.
Yeah, how do you like our pitch? We're professionals. Anyway. So, moving on to episode 2. I guess, or what is it?
Would it be
45.
45?
Episode 45, yeah. So, since it's Christmas, so help me, we got to do something Christmassy.
Don't be a Grinch.
I am a Grinch. I do not care for Santa Claus. But
We
anyway.
wish you a Merry Christmas. Or, I mean, here comes Santa Claus. Here comes Santa Claus riding down Gary Lane.
Yeah, you better not. Yeah, what's this? You better not watch it. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. It's not a creepy stalker song or anything. Hey.
Well, every song can be creepy stalker song if you sing it right.
Yeah. So part of the podcast though is faith, fiction, and folklore. We've kind of used folklore as a catch-all. Folklore encompasses ghost stories, conspiracy theories, and that kind of thing. But it also actually encompasses real folklore. Who knew? And there is a lot of folklore around Santa Claus. So I thought it would be appropriate to kind of watch the general 3,000-foot view of what all the folklore and all the stories are about old Saint Nick. I would like to actually do a video on the real Saint Nick, and if we have time, we'll pull that up, because I don't like all this cartoon pagan stuff. So maybe that's what we ought to do. Maybe we'll divide the first 30 minutes to an hour into talking about all the folklore around Santa Claus, and then we'll do an episode on the real Santa Claus, because I think the real Saint Nick is much cooler than the fat man they've marketed to us, which my wife was telling me. Maybe we'll confirm this in the video. I don't know. My wife was telling me that Santa Claus, as we know him, was invented by Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola Santa.
Which just makes me so mad.
From the old Coca-Cola commercial? Yeah.
I would make a joke about corn syrup, but apparently he came around before then. So anyway.
That's corny.
Yeah, it would be corny. Anyway. So, yeah.
Harry doesn't like my dad jokes.
Well, I just don't like Santa Claus.
Oh.
Anyway. No, this is one of my big complaints. Like, I'll be a Grinch and just kind of commit to it. I don't like the fact that everybody lies about Santa Claus being real. I mean, you want to talk about conspiracy theories not existing. What about an entire town lying that this giant mythical dude that squeezes in the chimneys exists? And it really is a communal affair. Because,
There's an actual North Pole. Do you not know that?
Yeah, I know there's a North Pole, but it's like a fake post office that they send letters to and nobody reads. Merry Christmas, children. Anyway, no.
Well, my daughter sent them a letter, and they replied with, "Oh, thank you for sending us your letter." And
it's a form letter, Trevor. Don't let your daughter see this episode. It's a form letter. It'll break her spirit.
Yeah.
And then,
I know.
She can either have her spirit broken now, or she can be a disillusioned teenager when she learns that it's all fake.
Disillusioned adult. And then a disillusioned adult.
And then a disillusioned adult. I like this. I'm sorry.
And then be mad at me for the rest of her life for lying to her.
There's always just a little bit of bitterness. It's like, you lied to me. You lied for years, and you were telling me to tell the truth. I might be projecting my own childhood, but I'm sure there's some other little tyke who feels as bitter and jaded as I do. Anyway, no.
Here's my truth. I don't even remember when I was told that it's not real. It's like, I've been trying to think about it, and I genuinely don't remember when I was told. But it might have been at Christmas when I caught my parents bringing presents.
There was a division in my house about it.
Oh, yeah.
And my family. So Mom always dealt with it the way I think is the best way to deal with it. She always was like, Saint Nick was a true historical figure and Santa Claus is based off of him. But Saint Nicholas used to leave presents on kids' doorsteps. And from the real Saint Nick, we get the legend of Santa Claus. And she just kind of told me the truth of it. I'm like, you know what? That makes sense. And I always liked that explanation. Even as a little kid, I was able to accept that explanation. And I kind of accepted, Santa Claus grudgingly. But Granny and other people, they weren't. Santa Claus was real.
Yeah.
And there was a commitment. Santa Claus is going to get you presents. Don't you want Santa Claus? And it's just, they say that to little kids without thinking about it, but it just drove me nuts.
Yeah.
And I don't like it because sitting here from an apologetics standpoint, what's the first thing those jaded atheist guys say? God ain't real. He's like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Because he knows. Because it's a perfect parallel if you're into that kind of thinking, It's the entire community participates in a collective lie because it's in some measure comforting. And people intuitively understand that. They resonate with that. And people, I'm sure, have all sorts of collective lies if in families and if in towns. And the mascots of holidays are a perfect example of that sort of thing. Makes it easier to reject God. And that's why I don't like it, because if you give a kid that bedrock, some atheist might swoop in someday and go, well, your parents lied to you about Santa Claus. How do you know they're not lying to you about God? And then, of course, some little kid, unless they're snarky like me, isn't going to have an answer,
Yeah.
But anyway, it's always bugged me.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
Well, I've just watched enough angry atheist debates, and that's like a catchphrase. He's like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. It's a catchphrase of those guys. You know, they say it all the time. And it's like, you know what you're doing. It's almost like a conspiracy. It's like the corporations 100 years ago knew there were going to be angry atheists and were like, you know, let's make up all these fake mascots so the jaded hedonists can say that God is just like these fake mascots. And let's convince everybody it's a great idea. Now that's a conspiracy theory. It's time travel. You're welcome, Internet. But anyway.
Time travel's real. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, of course it is.
Goes along with astral projection.
I guess we could talk. We do need to have a better conversation about astral projection, don't we? I don't feel like we've thoroughly explored that one.
No, we haven't.
When I say thoroughly explored, that means do like 10 episodes on flat Earth. So.
Oh, no.
Wait, I don't want to do that again.
I thought you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed making the rebuttal, you know, but yeah, it's I don't think, I don't know. If anybody's actually watching this, it would be a really good time for feedback right now, because do you, if you are a viewer watching this, like long form content where we spend a lot of time talking about stuff and really delving in deep? Because we could do 40 episodes on flat Earth. Like, I didn't even get to the radio waves experiments and all the other stuff there's other stuff out there that they claim is proof. So I didn't really study the magnetic cyclone vortex theory that they have. Like, there's a lot of stuff I didn't even cover on flat Earth because there just wasn't time. And
yeah,
so
we could spend days on it almost.
Yeah, and so, you know, we can go as deep as you want, and, you know, part of me would like to go deep. I don't like only kind of half understanding something, even if I disagree with it. So, I mean, you know, if people want us to go deeper, I would be happy to do that. But
they'd have to let us know.
Yeah, but yeah, we need feedback on that, because it's like, okay, does the 30-minute format work better? Or does the going down deep, staying down long work better? And that's kind of my question. So leave that to the chat if anybody actually hears this in the future or at the present. And,
or in the past.
Huh?
Or in the past.
Or in the past. I don't. However.
Gotcha.
Don't hurt my brain. We're going to be possibly we're going to be reviewing Terminator. There's a bunch of time warp loop theories involved with that too, which I guess is kind of in line with all this. How do time loops work, if they could work in a time travel scenario? So you transitioned us into the Terminator review stuff already, Trevor.
Sorry. Let's go back to Santa.
Let's go back to Santa. Okay. Which he does time travel too, you know, getting around the Earth. Anyway. Yeah, okay, let's go. Let's look at this thumb work.
He's the ultimate Terminator.
Santa's the Terminator?
Let's watch this video.
Okay, yeah, let's watch this video. All right, here we go. Come on. There we go. I should add, this is what Jess showed her class.
Christmas. A time to search for gifts. And traditionally, a time for the family. And a time to look for presents.
You already said gifts, dude.
Gifts are not presents.
Buy.
Are busy drawing up their lists. But who is this character that has become so popular at this time of the year? And is he the same the world over? And why does he
Depends
live
on
in
your
such a
region.
remote place?
Yeah, it depends on your region, exactly.
Does he always look the same?
Yes.
You already asked that.
Beard and a white mustache.
Why is this guy repeating himself?
Because he ate lots of food.
And when he went into your house, he wasn't beyond playing with the family pet or maybe stealing a turkey leg from the refrigerator.
Oh, so he was a thief.
And he walks in the snow and then he comes down the chimney and gives you presents.
because Santa loves all.
That's the real reason we give him milk and cookies, because the fat tub of lard will steal your turkey legs if you don't. It's a sacrament for your dad blame race car or whatever it is you're getting.
Or he'll send in his brother.
Oh, yeah, he'll send... Yeah, if you don't give him food, he's going to send the mean stepbrother or whoever and snatch the parents, Krampus or whatever.
Krampus. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Anyway, you know, the Krampus and Grinch need to have a smackdown. Somebody needs to get on the AI and make that happen.
There's channels for that. Where
Which channel? We need this movie.
Channels, plural, like multiple people. They take different characters from different realms, games, movies, and then make fighting videos.
So it's
really
like
cool.
Celebrity Deathmatch. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell I don't want to do this movie?
All the boys and girls, yes.
Santa Claus has remained somewhat up for grabs.
Oh, look at all
There's
those
been a little bit of
Santas.
a battle.
It's like an
over
Elvis
who Santa
convention.
Claus is.
The legend of Santa.
Oh, it's an
It's
ad.
the Motion Array Epic
Hang on a
Holiday
minute.
Sale.
You need pie.
Huh?
You need pie.
I need pie. I gotta mute it so we don't get copyrighted. Dad blamed you, YouTube.
I don't think they can
The
copyright
search for Santa
live
begins
streams.
not in the
Oh,
cold
I
of
think
the
they
North
can. I
Pole,
think you get copyright
but in the
warnings.
heat of Southwest
I hope you're
Turkey
looking at the studio in the
during
background,
3rd
because I
century.
can't, because I got this window up.
I'm watching.
This
All
area,
right.
it
They
is
should
claimed,
give, like, a red
was the
flag or
birthplace
something.
of St. Nicholas.
No, you're about to break the
Little
law,
real
jerk.
evidence
Turn off your
It
video.
survives of
It
his
didn't say anything.
existence.
Okay. All right.
I think you paused in time.
Good.
According to legend, he was unique even as a baby.
Course, I'm the
abstaining
only
from his
viewer
mother's
right now.
breast until sundown on Wednesdays and Fridays.
As far as I can
the
see.
early Christian fast days.
You're not supposed to say that during the live
Recently
stream, man.
excavated
We
from
have
the
millions
effects
of
an
views. It's all
earthquake,
great.
his
We're not
church in
alone.
memory,
It's fine.
Known in Nicholas's time
We have
as
followers.
Myra, is named in his honor. The now empty tomb is reputed to weep a manna, a fluid which even today is believed to have healing powers.
Most of our
and once a year,
subscribers
on
are
the
at
6th
the
of
Christmas party that
December,
we didn't go
the day
to.
Nicholas died,
Aw.
pilgrims partake.
They're all watching this going, what a bunch of losers. Don't even like Santa Claus. Good night.
Nicholas's election as Bishop of Myra was unusual to say the least.
Oh, so we are going to talk
A
about
senior
Saint Nick.
member of the conclave heard a voice in the night telling him to elect the first person to enter the church that following morning. That person happened to be Nicholas, and the boy bishop was crowned. He became the patron saint of children after resurrecting 3 boys who'd been slaughtered by a butcher during a period of famine.
Oh, I've not heard that
He's
version.
also the
I haven't heard
patron
that either.
saint of sailors.
I've watched history
But
lessons
his
on the
most
guy. I haven't heard
famous
that.
exploit
Yeah,
deals
me
with a
either.
poor man who had 3 daughters. The eldest was past the marrying age. The second was the right age, but nobody had asked her for her hand.
Çünkü o dönemlerde ki bu adet bugün de
Even today, the custom exists in East Antalya that a father has to provide.
Just so you guys know, I want you to appropriately appreciate the fact that there is a Santa Claus Foundation. Here you are, slaving away in a factory, or doing whatever it is you do, and somebody landed a job at the Santa Claus Foundation. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, but they gotta dress up like an elf all day.
They gotta dress up like
I don't
when
think
they're
I
at
could do
the
that.
museum. He's like in a suit and tie, he's all reformed. He's like, yes, I'm actually an intellectual, except on the holidays. They make me dress up like an elf, and we don't talk about that.
Well, I think of it more as like that movie Elf with what's his name, the comedian type dude.
Oh, Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
More like that.
So that's like just Santa's workshop. Is that what he calls it? The Santa Claus's Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Sounds better than my Santa Claus. It sounds better than Santa Claus's elf gulag, I suppose. So,
Oh.
you know.
Take him to the gulag.
Yeah, yeah.
A dowry for his daughter to get married.
Then, remarkably, the eldest daughter asked her father to sell her as a slave so that her sisters could be provided with dowries.
After hearing his eldest daughter, the father was very upset. And one day in his home, he prays to God to help his daughters to get married. St. Nicholas hears this, and in order to help him, he throws a bag of gold coins through the window.
Sounds like I should have been on the other side of that window.
The tale has evolved into St. Nicholas
nice.
throwing
That's
bags
nice.
of coins down a chimney where they landed in stockings hanging up to dry. It was this act of generosity, as well as his miraculous healing powers,
Hold
that
on.
gave
What's that?
Nicholas his legendary state.
They used to put stockings inside their chimney. I would think they would be on the outside of the chimney.
That's probably what he meant. Because that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So he probably meant on the mantle.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I didn't even hear it. So.
Following his canonization in the 9th century, Nicholas became the favorite saint in the Christian calendar. Throughout Europe, thousands of churches were dedicated to him. As Turkey came under Muslim
Because he punched another saint in the face, but that's a whole other story.
control,
Saint Nicholas, the actual
late
guy,
in
was
the
awesome.
11th century,
From what I
sailors
understand.
from Bari in Italy succeeded in spiriting away his bones, and an extraordinary church was built over his shrine.
It was built on a graveyard.
But the Muslim inhabitants of Demre are today proud to be associated with a Christian hero and hold a celebration on St. Nicholas's Day.
Those don't look like Santa.
Those don't look like burqas. What kind of Muslims are these?
I have no idea.
All right,
What would
anyway.
Nicholas have made of it all? Restaurants and gift shops take full advantage of their world-famous inhabitants.
Father Christmas is very important for us and for the world. We are very lucky and happy that he is in our country. In fact, he is a holy man for the whole world.
Today, the old reverential statue of St. Nicholas has been sidelined, replaced by a glowing universal plastic Western Santa.
That is a little depressing.
Dang it, America, we did it again.
Our Catholic saint was transformed.
You corporate mass-producing shills.
Oh.
You got rid of a revered saint and replaced him with the fat man. How dare you?
Too much turkey, I guess.
Too much turkey. Well, he's abandoned. Apparently, he raised the fridge for turkey legs. Good night.
To a favorite children's character is a journey that spans several continents and fuses many religions.
Because that's what's going to unite all the religions of the world, boys and girls. Corporatism. Corporatism.
Or Santa.
Yeah, or Santa.
Santa is the new Antichrist. Oh, that's not good.
I hope that's not true. Oh, man. Yeah. No, it is a little irritating. It's like, this guy's big shtick was giving to people, from what I understand, and now it's just like presents. You want presents? You want presents? Here's presents. Here's a fat man that represents excess. You know what I mean? Like, it annoys me a little bit, and maybe, like, perhaps this is part of the reason for my chagrin, is it is an inverse of what Christmas is supposed to be. The current mascot for Santa Claus, Saint Nick was about giving to other people, giving to people in need, helping your fellow man and being grateful for your family and all that. Now we have this giant fat guy that is like the embodiment of gluttony and too much stuff and wanting to get more. It really is an inversion of what Christmas is supposed to be.
Right.
But if you say that, you're a Grinch. So.
Why so serious? Oh, sorry, wrong.
That's the wrong impersonation. You gotta go. If you so much as utter one syllable, I'll hunt you down and gut you like a fish. If you'd like to fax me, press the star key.
That's Jim Carrey.
Yeah, that's Jim Carrey. I like that. I like that movie though.
That's a great movie.
It's a fantastic movie. So, anyway, okay, we're not gonna get on that spiel. Come on, play.
Still ruled in Nicholas's time.
Ignore my
and the
incompetence
emerging
as a producer,
Christianity
guys.
gained converts by blending with existing religions.
Pope Gregory I, in particular, put a great emphasis on the notion that if the people we are Christianizing have got their own traditions, destroy their altars, destroy their idols, replace them with Christian altars and Christian preaching.
Yeah, you know what they used to do in the olden times? They'd kill them. I prefer the destruction of the idols as a better alternative.
Yeah.
Some bitter guy. Yeah, I wonder what side of the religious aisle that dude falls under.
The most famous such celebration was the Roman Saturnalia.
The Roman what?
I don't know. They probably sacrificed a goat or something.
Saturnalia?
Saturnalia. I don't know.
Commemorating the dedication of the temple of the god Saturn, the god of agriculture and harvest.
Yeah, so the god of agriculture and harvest, they generally sacrificed things. I don't know if the Romans did this specifically, but usually when you hear about the god of agriculture and all this, usually means some poor animal or some poor kid, whatever, depending on the culture, was getting sacrificed so there'd be rain or something. Oh yes, those poor Romans. How dare those Christians replace that tradition? It's just awful.
December.
It was a time when the world was turned upside down, you might say, when the slaves, and there were an enormous number of slaves in Rome, were given their freedom, and when their masters waited on the slaves, and the slaves dressed up in their masters' clothes.
I am Spartacus.
Overexciting.
Right.
And when we use the word Saturnalia today, we generally refer to a rather overblown celebration full of misrule and misbehavior.
All right, maybe I'm mishearing this guy, but from what I just heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just going to say this because it sounds funny to me. I heard, yes, boys and girls, those Romans, they were quite charming. They gave their slaves a day off, and then they waited on their slaves instead. Boy, wasn't that Roman culture remarkable? Giving their slaves a day. How charitable.
Yeah.
If only we gave our slaves a day off, you know. Just great. Just great. This guy's a charmer.
As we proclaim Saturn, father of great Jupiter, with a gentle shout of Yo Saturnalia. When you hear this, you must bellow like oxen upon the fields. Yo Saturnalia! I'm pretty sure even you Britons can manage that. Yo Saturnalia! Yo Saturnalia!
Now give me your firstborn.
Being held around the shortest day, light was an important feature of the pageantry. As well as the giving of gifts. Gifts were believed to secure a rich harvest in the coming year.
It is customary to give out gifts to the population. And we, your protectorate, are happy to accept any gifts you want to give us.
That's a Roman. And that's an ad.
Where was he roaming?
Roaming for presents, see?
No, he's roaming for gifts. Because he was giving out presents.
No, he was roaming for taxes. See, when the government says a gift, what they mean is taxes that they are going to give to themselves. See how that works?
It's the fine print at the bottom.
It's always the fine print. You got to read the fine print, Trevor.
After the Romans, Saturnalia persisted as part of the midwinter celebrations in Europe.
We know that in the great castles of the nobles of the Middle Ages, that you had lords of misrule and jesters jolly-hoiting about the place, and overeating and overdrinking, and whether that was a celebration in honor of the Christ child, or was it a kind of folk memory of the Saturnalia, is a moot point.
People behaved so badly that when the Puritans came to power, they actually banned Christmas. There's nothing in the Bible about celebrating the Nativity. There's not even a clue about at what time of year it took place.
I'm not saying that we should do that, but I kind of understand why they would.
Right.
The decision to assign Christ's birthday to the 25th of December, the winter solstice on the Julian calendar, was inevitably going to be a compromise. Even so, over the centuries, St. Nicholas's popularity grew no more so than in the Netherlands. Every year, on a Sunday morning in mid-November, the quiet streets of Amsterdam are invaded by hundreds and thousands of people. They are all eagerly awaiting the arrival of a very special guest.
Santa.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
St. Nicholas and his servants, we call them Black Peters,
Oh dear.
are arriving from Spain in a steamer in the harbor.
We didn't know this was on here,
city.
YouTube. Don't sue us.
Sorry.
In the 17th century,
You could say they went overboard with that one.
him Sinterklaas, in English, Saint.
Why? They're in the Netherlands.
I don't know. I've never been there, so I can't
They
say.
must be thinking, who are we gonna tick off? There's none of them here.
Right?
Oh dear, that got awkward.
Sir.
How much
Klaas.
time is left?
And when you pronounce it fast, then you can.
Oh, stop.
Sinterklaas.
Please
the Netherlands
stop.
were a Roman Catholic country.
Guys,
But in,
come on.
In the 16th century,
You're
we
too
had
far north.
the
Don't do this to
Reformation,
me.
And then all the Roman Catholic things were forbidden. And the feast was forbidden too. And the children in Amsterdam and other places, they were going on the street. They make big noises and we
please
want the
quit.
feast, we want the feast. And then there was a big excitement in the city from that's not good as rumors and that's bad for the merchantry and the traffic, the money, the Dutchmen like the money. And then there's a compromise. They said, okay, the St. Nicholas feast are still forbidden in the street, but inside in the houses it's not forbidden.
On the eve of St. Nicholas's Day, letters with the children's wishes are placed in shoes by the fireplace.
Still makes
Some
more sense than
much
a post
appreciated
office in the North
refreshments
Pole.
are placed there too.
Mama, mag ik...
Mama, can I have 2 apples and 2 carrots for Sinterklaas?
Dankjewel. Als Sinterklaas cadeautjes
Well,
heeft
it's better than
gebracht.
cookies.
Yeah, in the
Sinterklaas
Netherlands.
himself brings the presents.
He eats healthy.
Then he will arrive after midnight to make sure everyone is in bed.
En als...
That's when he
dan
brings the
brengt hij
presents.
cadeautjes rond. De appels...
The apples and the carrot and the water are for his horse.
Sinterklaas,
Oh, he has horses. Is there a reindeer?
gooi wat in
Yeah,
mijn
I'm more interested in that than I am the apples and
Gooi wat
carrots.
in mijn laarsje. Dank u Sinterklaasje. S'morgens komt de stoomboot uit Spanje weer aan. We zingen liedjes.
We sing these songs because if Black Peter hears us, he knows that we are good children.
Hoe huppelt zijn paardje,
I didn't hear
het
nothing.
dek op en neer. O draaien de wippels al heen en alweer. Zij
Okay, look, movie. I know it's a touchy subject, but you can't show me a bunch of blackface and then have a dude called Black Peter and not elaborate. It's the
Right.
Netherlands. Why is Black Peter there? I need to know these answers.
Was it Black Peter or Black Nick?
It was Black Peter.
Oh,
Why? I need to know.
it's a history lesson.
but I didn't get a lesson. I just have questions.
Well, we still have 40 more minutes. Which we're not going that long.
I don't know. Okay. All right. We'll do
questions
we'll go a
on
little bit further, and then we'll.
The children believe that St. Nicholas is riding on the rooftops listening to their songs.
That's
Originally, he rode alone and was both the bringer of presents and the punisher. But then, a book of illustrated poems by an Amsterdam...
Who needs Krampus? Old St. Nick's got a riding crop.
Wow.
Oh, I have questions. All right, but we are past our 30-minute mark, so we're going to break this one up now. So, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right. And if you guys don't want to see that, yeah, we're still live. If you don't want to see that on the live stream, you got to subscribe. You got to help us out. We got to actually be able to have time to do these live streams and 4 separate episodes. Otherwise, we're just going to break them up into 4s and have awkward intros and outros through the whole thing. This is going to happen. So
we'll
anyway.
have to get over on Rumble to avoid being whatever.
Yep. So, we're going to pick it up again. So, welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Tri-F Podcast, where we try not to F the podcast up. And today, we are going through part 2 of our reaction to the history of St. Nick. We've gotten into some touchy material. I don't know what to think of it. And I'm scared to comment on it because the algorithm might get very mad at me very quickly. So, with that being said...
I'm not mad at you.
With that being said, Trevor... do you have any thoughts before we go on?
I'm a blank sheet.
You're a blank sheet. I think I probably need to be a blank sheet until we get through the Netherlands version of St. Nicholas.
Yeah, no, this is gonna throw me for a loop.
This is landmine material. So.
Or eggshells.
Or eggshells. Yes, we're walking on eggshells. While St. Nick uses a riding crop and steals children. All right, let's go on.
Sorry, wrong song.
Teacher gave the role of punisher to Black Peter.
When they were very naughty, St. Nicholas said to Black Peter,
I know nothing.
Get the naughty ones and put them in your sack. And then,
this is new to me.
And when the party was over, then they believed that the naughty ones were taken back to Spain. And then after a year, they're coming back, and they are very good and very obedient and very high.
Krampus ain't gonna take you to hell, children. He's taking you to Spain. Trust me, it's worse.
Those aren't the same kids. Dun, dun, dun.
If you aren't good for Christmas, little children, we're going to take you to Spain. Oh, yay, nationalism. That's fantastic.
I gotta take a quick break real quick.
All right, go on, sir. Turn your camera off.
Oh. Let's see.
We'll give him a minute while he does this. We're not going to comment on the eggshells, the obvious bombs that we're being given here, the layups for jokes that will get us banned from the internet. We're not going to say a word.
Hardworking children. But in the other countries, as in Austria, Switzerland and Hungary, St. Nicholas was accompanied with very terrifying persons. There were blackamoors, there were herring monsters, and even devils to frighten the naughty children.
Well, there's an origin of Krampus you probably weren't expecting to hear. Congratulations, you learned something today.
An example for the good ones.
Heel graag een PlayStation.
Please may I have a PlayStation?
Een Lego train.
A Lego train.
Allemaal bestuur.
With all kinds of wheels.
Een trein.
And trains and tracks. That would be very nice.
En als dat is gebeurd, dan komt er pakjesavond, 5 december.
And when the night itself comes, the 5th of December, we have to wait until after we have eaten as a family.
En als ze dan klopt er...
And then, Black Peter knocks on the door. Last year, Black Peter actually came in.
Oh, don't do it.
After he has knocked the door, there will be a sack in front of the door with presents, and Papa will show out the presents. We are not allowed. Only Papa can do this.
Wat zit er, jongen? Anders kan je het niet zien. Oh. Spannend. Even kijken hoor, van wie zal deze zijn? Wauw, voor Roos.
Voor Roos, hè? Papa, maak hem maar open.
Ja.
De Banana-Express. Wauw, de Banana-Express. Dank u wel, Sinterklaas.
Okay.
Okay.
Many of the customs surrounding the Christian Sinterklaas are vestiges of an older pre-Christian religion. Checking up on naughty children, riding a white horse, and children leaving food out
you're
at
good.
night, can all be
We're
traced
just,
back to the Norse
trying
god
to
Odin.
Let the racial humor
He
speak
too
for
had a long
itself.
white beard and spent the year in distant land. In
Did
his
it get
case,
bad?
Valhalla.
It didn't get good.
On the eve of the winter
Well, that's
solstice,
better than
he would
not
come back
good.
to Earth and
Not
seek out
good.
evildoers.
At least the
Odin
Santa
would lead
Claus
the
here
hunt
ain't
on
fat.
his great white horse,
I'm not letting that
carrying
go.
off naughty children
At least
in
he's
a
like
howl
a
of
somewhat
wind.
dashing individual who's not a testament to gluttony and excess. I can live with that.
Well, he hasn't made it to America yet.
He hasn't gotten to America yet. Maybe he gets to America last. And by the time he reaches the United States, he's like just a tub of lard from all the cookies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe Santa Claus is a supernatural being who eats once a year as he's giving out presents, and then he just grows and grows and grows and starves himself throughout the rest of the year. I'm going to go with that. It doesn't make a lick of sense, but I'm going to go with that.
Kind of like hibernation.
Yes, only with fat. Oh, that's a stupid joke. Anyway, I am like digging the bottom of the barrel here, man. I couldn't care less about Santa Claus. We're just, chase the algorithm. 'Tis the season, so we're gonna.
To be jolly.
We're gonna chase the season. No. All right.
Our journey now crosses the Atlantic.
And we get introduced to the Fat Man. Why do we need to hear? We already know about American Fat Santa.
And today, Manhattan is probably the epitome of the commercial exploitation of the holiday season.
Oh, we're gonna talk about commercial exploitation. Okay.
But it also had a vital role to play in evolving St. Nicholas into a character that has become recognized all over the world.
Thanks to Coca-Cola.
New York has the legitimate right
Bring the
to
polar
lay
bears
claim
back.
to the invention of the American Santa Claus.
Do you own your own home in
stop
Missouri?
Oh, hi.
I gotta mute you now. You irritating cuss. I'm like, hello, lady. Don't point at me.
How dare you? She's a nice lady.
Originally, New York was known as New Amsterdam, and many Dutch immigrants settled here, bringing with them many European customs and traditions.
Oh, so we can blame the
a
Dutch.
long-standing
All right.
legend, one of many St.
So now we're
Nicholas
in
legends,
Dutch instead of
that
Amsterdam?
St. Nicholas came to
I
America
guess.
through the Dutch. And of course, it's true that the Dutch settled in New Amsterdam, now New York City, back in the early 17th century.
Oh, my bad.
But there seems to be no evidence that they actually brought St. Nicholas rituals with them. St. Nicholas was reinvented as Santa Claus in New York early in the 19th century by a group of patrician gentlemen who were not Dutch in the least. They were all of British stock, but they loved to identify with the Dutch. They were looking for a set of legends that they could associate with New York as it used to be, and that is to say, with America as it used to be.
One New York resident who wrote about the changing times was Dietrich Knickerbocker.
All right, I'm skipping because we already know where America's tragedy leads. So talk for a minute while I find a place that's actually, like, appropriate. Because we need to get through this.
Okay. Yeah, and I can see it on the live stream, by the way, your mouse and everything.
That's okay. You can look at my poor attempt at work. We got Martin Luther here.
That's all right.
Is that okay? Are they gonna blame the Protestants for something stupid, or are they gonna try to move on here? Let's jump here and see what we end up with. Okay, let's see where we end up here.
Let's go.
18th century, Martin Luther's Reformation brought about the anti-Catholic movement in Germany.
Martin Luther.
As Protestants could not have saints, a new Christmas tradition was needed. So the baby Jesus became the bringer of gifts.
The Holy Christ is actually only a baby, so it made no sense that he could bring the presents.
Oh, shut up. So, okay. That makes sense because it was Christ who was inspiring Saint Nick. So, meh. Lady.
Wait, not the other way around?
Oh gosh, Trevor.
You lost me.
No, they're
I'm
complaining about baby. Well, maybe I'm jumping the gun here. They were mad because the Protestants couldn't use saints, or they were saying the Protestants couldn't use saints. Maybe this sounded mad to me, but maybe I'm just being sensitive. But anyway, so they're saying, well, baby Jesus couldn't bring the gifts because, you know, he's a baby, so I guess they're going to incorporate Santa Claus somehow into that. But I'm like, it still makes sense because Saint Nick, you know, was inspired by Christ. That's why he, you know, gave the gifts and did what he did. So I'm maybe they're not complaining and I'm just reading into that, but, you know.
So Saint Nick came after Christ.
Yes, by quite a bit. So,
okay, yeah, I don't know my history on it. So.
Gosh, yeah, maybe we should have done the Matt Reeves one first because I feel like we kind of need to learn more about the actual original Santa Claus, and I thought we were going to get to dodge it because, you know, they talked about Saint Nick in the beginning, but apparently not enough. No, Saint Nick was a pretty significant saint in the old church, so the traditions have been kind of molded around him.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard about him growing up and stuff. I just don't know my actual dates and history of it.
We'll do that on the next episode because I kind of feel like that needs talked about. Like, we need to know more about Saint Nick here. I don't really think you can understand what Christmas is about. Like, we've seen a bunch of very bizarre traditions, but I would expect to see various traditions, and some of them, from my perspective, being bizarre throughout the world anyway. That's not... I can't really point to anything I've learned here other than, traditions can be weird, but I already knew that, so I don't know. So let's see what they have to say before we move on, because maybe we'll do the history of Saint Nick here in a few minutes, but let's try to get this video wrapped up anyway.
Okie dokie.
Neither did it make sense for a stronger young man, because that would not fit in with the story of Christmas. Therefore, the Holy Christ evolved into a female fairy-like figure.
What? Where are we at?
By the 1900s, the Nuremberg Christkind wore a golden pleated robe based on the Nuremberg golden angel. In other German towns and cities, the Christkind wears white and a starry wreath. It's a great honor for any girl to be chosen to be the Christkind.
Okay.
The contents of the letters and drawings are just like those by children anywhere. But in many parts of Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic, and Switzerland, the recipient is the Christkind.
Ich stell's mir so vor. I imagine her to have long curly hair and a long dress and a big crown.
Okay, so that's interesting. So if I'm understanding this correctly, they don't have a Santa Claus.
No.
So they have I kind of like that better. But I really don't like Santa Claus. I like Saint Nick, but I don't like Santa Claus. All right.
I also think she would have a crown and a golden robe and golden curly hair.
And a golden book.
Kling, Glöckchen, klingelingeling, kling, Glöckchen, kling. Lasst mich bei ihr, Kinder, ist so kalt der Winter. Lieber guter Nikolaus, bitte komm in unser Haus. Der Weg von Tannenwald ist weit und es ist kalt. Und weiter geht's nicht.
Super, toll hast du es gemacht. Das ist doch einen großen Applaus, schau mal. Super.
The Christkind, being entertained by a carol about St. Nicholas, shows how the roles of the religious figures have merged. The Weihnachtsmann, or Father Christmas, also features in certain parts of Germany.
Today it is totally different. Today the Christkind comes mainly to the Catholic families. So in South and Southwest Germany, where Catholicism is quite widespread, Christkind is the present bringer. And in North Germany, in the evangelical areas, Father Christmas brings the presents. So this is a crossover development which is very interesting.
So again, it comes back to what region are you in?
Yeah, yeah. So it looks like they don't call Saint Nick here. They just call him Father Christmas. I'm like, all right.
Just like Santa and Father Christmas, the Christkind also visits on Christmas Eve.
I think the Christkind brings the presents when we are all in church.
That's on the 24th of December, and when we come home, we aren't allowed into the living room. Then we are allowed in, and there is a decorated Christmas tree.
Who's gonna tell them?
Good job, Mom and Dad.
The Christmas tree is a gift that Germany gave to the rest of the world.
Oh, sehr schön. Und guck dir mal die vielen Geschenke an.
Today, Santa Claus can be seen alongside the Christkind even in the German Christkindl market in Nuremberg.
Okay, I apologize for being somewhat obnoxious before, because I actually, of all the traditions I've seen so far, I kind of mind this one the least. I kind of like this one, actually. Your thoughts, Mr. Trevor?
Well, I honestly wouldn't mind trying a little bit of everyone's. Except for Amsterdam's. That one was a little out
Yeah,
there.
you'll go to jail if you try that one. You can't do those traditions here. That's
just gonna try each one.
We're just gonna omit the whole Black Peter thing.
The legal ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind trying this tradition out.
No, this one seems all right. I mean, it's like an avatar for Christmas that's not, you know. I mean, it's still kind of, I guess it's, some people might say it's adulterous to have an avatar at all, but, you know, I don't mind it, you know.
Well, as long as you're not worshiping it.
Well, yeah, it's a little more abstract than Saint Nick, I guess, or Santa Claus. And that's probably why it's appealing to me, because you don't need to be hearing about you don't need an entire community lying to you, telling you somebody's real when they're not when you're 6. I just think that's going to jade you when you get older. But I'm a Grinch. What can I say? I'm a Grinch.
You got jaded a lot, didn't you?
I did. Well, what's kind of got me on this shtick and got me kind of upset, and I'm going to go on a rant here, so I'm switching over to the other screen, because it's got to be transformative. I didn't realize how much social pressure there was to go along with the Santa Claus thing, you know, because before, you know, me and Jess, we just kind of were like, well, we're gonna go with the Saint Nick story. He left presents on doorsteps, and he was a historical figure, and Santa Claus is based on him. That was kind of what the original plan was, but when Demi got older, like older, like 5 or 6, they started Jess really did start to feel a lot of pressure to kind of go along with the Santa Claus thing. You gotta say it's from Santa Claus, like there is this kind of communal pressure to go along with it. Right. And to me, that's kind of spooky. And it does kind of create this idea. It's like, well, if a whole town is willing to lie to you about it, I'm just thinking maybe I'm just a weird 6-year-old, but I mean, good night. If I were 6, and I was, if they're willing to lie about that, what else are they willing to lie about? Like that's kind of
right.
Like I just don't like. It's like to us, it's a fun tradition, but to a kid, it's going to be a lie, and that bugs me. It makes me feel like
That's a good point.
Yeah,
we were just kind of gonna roll until our kids come to us and ask us.
Yeah, the
And
second
then
Demi asks me, I'm going to explain the whole thing. I don't really feel like I have a choice. But right now, it's like impossible to really tell her Santa Claus isn't real, to sit down and like explain it to her, because everybody is like, oh, Santa Claus is going to bring you presents. Santa Claus is going to bring you presents.
You better be good.
Same thing with Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny. It's like everybody's just like drilling it in your head, and if you kind of sit there and go, well, Santa Claus ain't real, then a 6-year-old's gonna go, okay, and then forget like 30 seconds later.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, like us as adults, we're capable of kind of considering the nuance of the whole thing, but a kid is just gonna view it as a lie, and that's gonna plant a seed. It's gonna make you kind of distrust your folks, and I just don't care for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on some level, our kids already distrust us a little bit.
Yeah. Well, like, you're the disciplinarian anyway.
Yeah.
Because you're the disciplinarian, and because they're always scared of making you mad to a certain extent, they're already going to kind of distrust you, and that kind of affirms that a little bit. So I don't care for it, but there's a lot of pressure to go along with it when you're an adult, which kind of surprised me, But,
yeah, that's a good point.
So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a Grinch. That's okay, though. It's my opinion, so, eh.
You can be my Grinch.
I don't know what that means.
It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right.
It's ironic that a variation on the pronunciation of Christkind, Kris Kringle, has become another name for Santa Claus in certain parts of America. Barcelona Harbour on the 5th of January, and a large expectant crowd has gathered. Some special guests are expected.
Epiphany is in its origin a religious festivity, and with the celebrated introduction of Jesus Christ to the rest of the world. In Spain, we don't have Father Christmas. Traditionally, we have the 3 wise men that come during the night from the 5th to the 6th of January and give presents to the little children. The 3 wise men are Melchor, that represents Europe, Gaspar, who represents Asia, and Balthasar represents Africa. They were the 3 continents known at the time Jesus Christ was born.
See, I like that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I like the reactions of, the nativity and all that. That's cool. I like that. That's great.
It is very difficult to track back the real origins of the tradition.
I dare you to let me build you.
I dare you to not plague me with ads, YouTube.
They're adding.
Yeah. I'm not buying your thing, dude.
Oh, come on.
Nowadays, we're very proud
he
of
was
having
daring
the
you to buy the
in
thing.
contrast
well, if he's
to the
daring me.
Anglo-Saxon tradition of Santa Claus or
I'm sure it's a
Father
great
Christmas.
ad. I don't know
We
the
feel
dude.
that
I'm
we are
sure it was a
different
fantastic
with that. And of course, it's not only a tradition in Spain, it's a tradition in South America and in the old Spanish colonies all around the world.
That's a cool light show.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Kids have to write the letters
I wanna
and
see
think
that
about the
parade.
presents that they want to ask them for.
Our local parade,
and
they-
you have to throw
the band
letters
played
to the
and
postal boxes.
they threw
And
some
of course,
candy,
the
and that
kids
was
are
about it.
supposed to read all the letters of the kids during the night and prepare
Doing
the
the whole
presents for
9
the
yards.
following day.
That's pretty cool.
The three kings do not just visit Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Alcoy is a bit special because in this town the idea of preparing a cavalcade in which you had a parade with the camels and the kings in person was first thought here and first realized in 1886. During the cavalcade, they normally give like 1,000 kilos of caramels and candies all around.
I love caramel candies.
The best thing is to receive the presents from the pages. What you have is like large ladders that are put against the balconies, and then you'll have the pages climbing around with big packets full of presents and toys. And then you'll see the little kids receiving with all the emotion these packages from the real kings and pages.
That's very nice of them.
It's a little bit more believable than the chimney thing.
Yeah.
Okay, racial stuff aside, that's a pretty cool tradition.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I've liked this one the most so far. Like, when you get a little further removed from the Santa Claus thing, you have the three kings coming in. That's cool. Like, that's like the actual... It's a pretty... I mean, technically it's not Christmas, but that's a pretty big component of the Christmas story. So, yeah, that's
part of the
really
nativity story.
Well, when you're a kid, can you imagine how exciting it would be to have somebody climbing up to your roof just to give you toys? That would excite a little kid.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, we're actually going to call it good here. And we are going to... I'm going to end this review of the various Christian cultures. If you want to watch this whole video, it is called The Legends of Santa Christmas Documentary, Real Stories. And the channel is called Real Stories on YouTube. So if you are inclined to learn more, go give them a look-see. So...
I'm going to have to give them a look-see later.
Yeah, that was educational. I was a bit of a butt in part of it, but it was educational. So, Mr. Trevor, I'm going to end this with a final question to you that we've had to deal with growing up in the circles we grew up in. So, do you think it is a sin To celebrate Christmas, because the holiday has pagan roots. I mean, the answer is obviously no, because we both celebrate Christmas, but why or why not?
No, I don't think it's a sin to celebrate the tradition of Christmas. No, I don't. The only part that makes it sinful is worshiping it.
Yeah.
So, you got gluttony, which is the biggest part of it. Is I want. And originally, the gifting of Christmas is giving instead of getting. So,
yeah.
Most of the time, we just give our time. That's what little we can give.
Yeah.
So we go and see family. And if we don't get anything, I'm trying to teach my kids this. If we don't get anything, that's fine. What we did get was time with family. And that's a very important thing.
Oh, I agree.
Some family we only see once a year.
Yeah.
Around the holidays.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think that's what ultimately holidays in general are about. It's about spending time with family. It's about you being with each other, giving gifts, showing appreciation for one another, and, recognizing those bonds that hold us together. And that's the opposite of corporatism, which, I hate to sound like a communist because I'm not a communist, but it does bother me. The modern mascot of Santa, the older I get, really gets to me more and more. Because it's just like, you got this giant fat man giving presents at random, and it is an inverse of what Christmas is supposed to be. Like, we receive gifts, and that's great, but we're also supposed to be giving gifts, and we're supposed to be, learning the value of giving to other people the same way Christ gave his life for us. That's the whole idea. And yeah, that's a good thing no matter what culture you're from. So I'm not bothered by the pagan roots of the holiday. And no. I've never really been bothered by the idea of incorporating pagan traditions into the Christian religion in general. It's like you've got to teach people that have never heard about Christ Christian concepts. Well, what better place to start than those people's own traditions? Because I think I'm not quoting C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien, but that's kind of where they were at. Those old myths do have elements of truth in them. Yeah. And you can use those elements of truth to teach people about Christianity and about Christ and teach them that God loves them. Like, you can use what they already know as a bedrock for all that. And so I think it's fine to use holidays of pagan roots or what have you. I don't have any issue with that at all. What I do have an issue with is telling people that there's some dad-blame phantom known as Santa Claus who's really real and he's really going to give you presents and, deifying a mascot, essentially. Because I think, you do eventually learn that Santa Claus isn't real, and that is going to beg, and you're going to learn that all the mascots aren't real, and that is going to beg the question, well, what else isn't real? If you can't see it, is it real? Like, it just plants those secular seeds, as it were, and I don't care for it. And I don't think people are willing to admit that it's as big a problem as it is.
Yeah, and then you get upset kids about, Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny and all the other entities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just don't think it's not needed because all those holidays have a pre-existing lore around them anyway. Oh, yeah. So why have the mascot? It doesn't make any sense. I've never understood why we have an Easter Bunny. It's just an attempt to secularize things, in my opinion. Same thing with Santa Claus. Like, the big fat man is like, he's a mascot for corporatism, whether corporatism is a good thing or a bad thing. He ain't a mascot for Christ. And that's what the holiday is about.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, but family time and giving to each other should be enough to unite people. You don't need a dad blame mascot for that.
Or gifts.
Or gifts. The gifts are nice. I mean, I like getting gifts. I don't want to dunk on it, but yeah, that's not what the holiday's about. And, you know, just as a little random tirade, one thing that's really bugging me is this growing impulse to just skip Thanksgiving. That is a beautiful cockroach.
It's bugging him.
It's Oh, I see what you did there. Funny. Ha, ha, ha. Anyway. No.
Sorry.
No, you're good, man. No, what the heck was I saying now?
Got him.
I was about to get all pretentious and you threw me off. No. Okay, Thanksgiving. It's bugging me that people are like ignoring Thanksgiving now and like setting up Christmas decorations before Thanksgiving's even been celebrated. I mean, it's bad enough that we have a holiday devoted for gratitude and then it's immediately replaced by Black Friday, you know. That's bad enough. It's such a perverted thing in our culture, but you know, to sit there and try to omit the holiday altogether, it's like, what, Hallmark can't make enough money off the dad blame cards for Thanksgiving? You got to just omit the holiday too and just make Christmas season that much longer?
It's because they tied it in with Columbus and that whole spiel about how Columbus was this terrible person because of what he did.
I think there's some college egghead who actually believes that, but
yeah,
I think the powers that be that started pushing that narrative just don't like whoever they are, they don't like the idea that people should be grateful. I mean, why are you going to spend a bunch of money on a TV if you're grateful for what you already have? Who profits from that?
Yep.
You know? And so, I mean, it's making me upset. And, you know, for as campy as that Jim Carrey Grinch movie was, I mean, it really was ahead of its time in that way. Like, it was warning against this kind of oversaturation of corporatism in a holiday. I mean, capitalism's fine. There's nothing wrong with capitalism. There's nothing wrong with making money. But you got to be grateful sometimes, and you got to spend time with your family sometimes. You can take a day off from buying crap to spend time with your family. That's okay. It's not going to like cause the American economy to collapse.
Right.
It's just ridiculous. So, okay.
Capitalism is the devil.
It's not, though. It's really not. It's just there's people that don't know when to stop. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, guys, you can take a break. You don't have to be making money all the time. It's fine. Take a day and, you know, take all that money you've accumulated and give some of it to your spouse and your kid and then, like, you know, spend time with them. It's fantastic. You'll remember why you were working so hard in the first place.
Yep.
Anyway. Okay. So I'm done being preachy. We're going to move on to the next episode. So, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Next time.
Okay. So now we're going to do the last... I don't know if this is going to be the last one for tonight or not.
Where are we at?
We are going to do... We're not going to do another one on the folklore around Santa Claus. We can either go into the fiction stuff or we can go into the actual history of Santa Claus. I think it would be appropriate to go into the history of St. Nicholas, like the real guy.
Like do an actual historical type.
Yeah, like the history of St. Nick.
Would we need to... Well, since we're live, I guess it won't matter.
Well, I've already got a video pulled up. It may...
Oh, you've already got one? Okay.
Yeah, because I had a feeling that was going to be a little too long to do a full review over, and I was going to lose my mind. I mean, how many times can I say the fat man is stupid, you know? So I guess it maybe would be better to try to do a history lesson on Santa Claus. Yes. And then if we are still feeling energetic, we can do a fiction review. And then we'll call it good. But that's up to you. So
he's got a feeling.
I've got a feeling. And hopefully this actually gives the history of Saint Nick and not Santa Claus, and I picked the right video. Because I know Ryan Reeves has history on the actual guy. I just hope I picked the right one. So we'll see. All right, so here we go. We are going to cover the real history of Saint Nick, if this is the right video. In which case, if it's not, you're going to have to cover for me while I find the right one. But anyway, here we go.
I'm covering.
You sit on a throne of lies.
That would be Santa
I thought
Claus.
I was done talking about folk history and holidays, at least for a little while. But then my boys asked me to make a video about where Santa Claus comes from. They're at the age where they find history a bit more interesting. Not as interesting as Minecraft, but still interesting. Now, I have 2 other videos, older videos, on Christmas that I will link in the description.
Those are the ones I watched.
One is on the history of Christmas presents. The other is on the story of the song Silent Night. This topic, though, is on the age-old question, where does Santa Claus come from? It's actually a harder question for people to find out on their own. Some of you may be aware that there was a bishop in the 4th century named St. Nicholas, but it's unclear how he got reindeer and started breaking into your houses to deliver presents. Some are even suspicious of Santa, thinking he's some sort of secular plot to remove the true meaning of Christmas from the Nativity. I've had at least one educated...
Don't laugh at my conspiracy theory. That's exactly what's going on. Don't make fun of me.
...man tell me, to my face, that Santa is just the name for Satan scrambled up to hide the devilish origin.
They made a movie with Jack Black about that not too long ago. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are like, oh, it's from the devil, and yeah, don't watch it.
Yeah. It's like, guys, it's okay. I mean, if Satan really was being equivocated with Santa Claus, I'm sure the devil is embarrassed about it.
Just pray before you watch it, and you'll be all right.
There you go.
Well, there's a lot of good information out there on the history of Santa, but it's not easily accessible. At least there is nothing immediately available in this kind of format. There are scholars of all stripes, religious and secular, who have pieced together much of this story that I'm about to tell you. But if you've watched some of my recent videos, especially on Halloween, you're already probably prepared for what I'm about to tell you. Santa and Christmas are Catholic traditions that get altered, changed, and secularized by Protestants after the Reformation. There is almost no connection to the Roman practice of Saturnalia or to the god Odin, though you'll often hear those claims in pop culture. Credentialed historians are agreed on that point, by the way, though a Google search or Wikipedia can make it sound like the jury's still out. Neither the Romans nor the Norse had anything that approached the idea of Christmas or Santa, though now, of course, the number of things said to be originally part of Saturnalia is comically large and mostly historically false.
We just watched that in the previous video.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah, at the very beginning, they were saying as part of Saturnalia, Romans were, equivocating gifts of taxes or something.
So is this guy wrong?
No, I think he's right. I would trust this dude. He's really on point when it comes to church history. Just in case you're curious, the guy's channel is Ryan Reeves, and I highly recommend him. He's thorough. You may not agree with everything he says, but he is thorough. And so I would trust this guy over a lot of people. So,
okay.
In fact, as you'll see in a minute, most of what we consider to be quintessentially Christmas and quintessentially part of who Santa is was invented in the 1800s. And the legend and the image of Santa didn't even get fixed until the 1930s. Santa Claus and Christmas, in other words, are new traditions riding on the coattails of older Catholic liturgy. Okay, first, St. Nicholas. We can count on the fingers of one hand what we know about the origins of St. Nicholas. We know he was Greek and from a wealthy family. We know he was Bishop of Myra in modern-day Turkey. He was persecuted under Diocletian just prior to the rise of Constantine, and he may have attended the Council of Nicaea, where the Nicene Creed got its first draft. That's it. At least that's all we know for sure. Even the Catholic Church only formally recognizes these facts as provable for St. Nicholas. And so much of what we consider to be the fuller story of Nicholas comes from the legends and stories written down at a later time. My favorite is the legend that states that as an infant, Nicholas refused to breastfeed on Wednesdays and Fridays, since those are Catholic fast days. I'm sure that's how babies work. but he was certainly famous. We know this because in the area around where he was a bishop, people began to name themselves after him when they were ordained. Stories abound also of St. Nicholas caring for children and giving his wealth away lavishly, which is absolutely where the later stories of him as a giver of gifts to children originates. But he did not go around on December 24th giving gifts to celebrate the birth of Jesus. The most popular...
Now, see, that's what I heard growing up. That's depressing. I kind of thought that was true. Oh, well. That's what I heard, about the guy.
Well, that's what we're all about is, we're finding the truth in things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Legend is that Nicholas once heard of 3 young girls whose father was old and poor and unable to pay for their dowry to marry. He was on the verge of selling them into, let's just say, a certain kind of slavery that I won't say out loud. Nicholas, the story goes, decided to act, and he came to the window of the home at...
If you must.
No, I don't want to.
You don't want to? It rhymes with constitution.
Night.
Constipation?
And on 3 consecutive nights, dropped a bag of gold into the window to pay the girls' dowries. Now, there's lots of little permutations of that story that go far and wide, but the basics are all kind of there. He gives lavishly, and he does so anonymously, and he is looking out for younger people in need. Now, there is, of course, another legend of St. Nicholas, one that is loved by theology nerds everywhere, and that is the story of St. Nick slapping Arius at the Council of Nicaea. I think it's just the juxtaposition that makes people laugh. Bearded old Santa...
Hey, don't knock it out. You're the one that taught me that one. I never heard of it before these videos. Don't try to distance yourself from it now, buddy. You're the one that spread that. Or one of them.
Spread what?
Slapping.
That St. Nicholas slapped a guy.
I didn't say that.
Ryan Reeves said that. I don't know why I went into a falsetto there, but anyway.
He said... Wait, who slapped who?
St. Nicholas slapped another saint. As the meme says on the shared screen, Mama said knock you out.
Oh. I just missed it. Sorry.
A heretic for denying the divinity of Christ.
Adobe, I will be on you as soon as the live stream is done. Don't sell me an ad. I've already bought you. I don't think I can buy any more from these people. You've already taken my money. Leave me alone.
That's why they're adding.
Yeah.
So they can add to your collection.
Yeah.
Is unverifiable, I'm sorry to say. It really is only written down later in the Middle Ages. It is interesting, though, and it may have been true. This is actually a rare story because it tells a negative story about a popular saint.
That's not a negative story.
Which does give it some measure of veracity.
That's not a negative story. Why is that a negative story? That's awesome. He punched a dude for denying the divinity of Christ. How is that a bad thing?
He should have turned the other cheek.
Bah.
Humbug.
He was spreading misinformation. It's fine.
Oh. I like misinformation.
And no, but...
So does the internet.
It leads to the truth. Misinformation does.
That might actually be a very profound thing you just said. That you meant as an offhanded comment. To get to the truth, you must wade through a pool of lies.
Well, I mean, the way of truth is extremely narrow.
Yep.
Because Jesus is the truth, and his way is extremely narrow.
We're going to have to talk about that Bible verse someday. I don't know if it means what people think it means.
It means a lot. It means a lot more than what people think it means.
Well, I don't think it's... Well, we don't need to go into that. We'll just be ranting on something completely unrelated. But yeah, that's something we need to circle back to.
All night on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll... I don't know if it... I don't know if it just means to not sin. Like, I'm not sold that that's all it's talking about. I don't know.
It's not.
But we'll see. I mean, we'll circle back to that and talk about what it means sometime, but we need to stay focused.
This was not how business was conducted at councils. The later story is that Nicholas did this. He slapped Arius, and that he was defrocked and removed from his bishop's seat as a result. So we really don't know what to make of the story at all.
Council was weak. They should have let him keep it. They should have gave him a promotion. But anyway.
You can
Maybe
give him
it
a
happened,
promotion.
maybe it didn't. But, well, the memes are going to live on no matter what. So that's not much to base Santa on. But then something happens in the 11th century. Just on the eve of the Crusades, the bones of St. Nicholas were stolen by a band of Italian merchants and removed to the southern city of Bari in Italy. To this day, in fact, his bones are on display there in the tomb in the Basilica of St. Nicholas. Now, for my money, that's the funnier story. You can go see the bones of Santa Claus in a church in southern Italy. Maybe don't bring the kids.
Why?
But
They'll be
that
fine.
translation, as we call it,
It's
of
haunted.
the bones from modern-day Turkey to Italy brought a new veneration for the stories of St. Nicholas to Europe. And so the story in the West began to grow. Now, it's important to say there is an equally important expansion of the story of St. Nicholas into the regions that will one day be Russia, but I can't go into that. But the Russian Orthodox Church has a long-standing history of veneration of St. Nick, but that veneration does not produce the same story of Santa Claus as we know it today in the West. In Europe, though, two things happen. First, the Feast of the Nativity, that is to say, the commemoration of the birth of Jesus, was established in the early church to fall on December 25th. As I always say, no, they did not think that he was born on that day. No one did, at least in the ancient church. There was an older practice of Saturnalia, as I've already said, that was basically just a bunch of wild parties during the winter solstice. And they were largely over the top and, frankly, as Roman parties tend to be, kind of wild. To use Southern American lingo, it was the last barbecue cookouts before it got too cold and too dark to do much of anything outside until spring. That's really what Saturnalia was at its core. The other thing about Saturnalia is it was a time of kind of upheaving the traditions, the standards, and it was a time of what we would call misrule. And that idea of misrule and partying is what sticks around in European Christmas. So keep that in mind, and I'll come back to it in a minute. But the Feast of the Nativity had nothing to do with giving presents or Christmas trees or St. Nick or any of these things that we call Christmas today. Rather, it was December 6th, the Feast of St. Nicholas himself, that was the day for presents. Those stories of St. Nick giving gifts and being a bishop, weighing your sins and your virtues, was mostly what was in focus on December 6th. It was essentially a childlike version of penance. It was said that he would bring a sack of presents around to those who had been good. But he also, and this is also funny, carried a switch for those who had been naughty. And that is, of course, the origins a bit of Santa's list. You can just see the frazzled mothers of bad kids warning them that Santa is going to whip you when he comes to town. And you thought Elf...
That's quite a nerve-wracking trip to the supermarket, don't you think? Yeah, we're going to go to the mall, and Santa might give you some presents, but he might beat you. It's
Well,
coin
maybe.
toss, really. Just let that hang in the air, nice and awkward.
As long as he doesn't make me pick my own switch.
I don't even... That would be hilarious. Like, have a Christmas tree, but it's dead,
Yeah.
and all the bad kids have to cut the switch before St. Nick beats them mercilessly.
And if the switch breaks, you gotta go get it done.
You gotta pick another one. We're masochists, Trevor.
Well, I mean, that's what... I don't remember who made me do that. Was it Grandma?
I don't know. It was a long-standing tradition.
Yeah.
That's all I guess anybody really needs to know.
Yep.
On the shelf was manipulative. But don't mistake the story. It was more of a playful penance, a liturgical catechizing of kids into the practice of weighing your sins and good deeds in this act of penance on December 6th. In other words, what we consider Santa and Christmas was actually a story that was celebrated on St. Nicholas's Day, December 6th. And the practice was largely, again, a Catholic practice. December 25th, though, was mostly a large season of parties for adults, with a lot of drinking and eating, but nothing of what we consider modern-day Christmas, trees, presents, and jolly old St. Nick. So what happens? Well, quickly, the story is that the Protestant Reformation disrupts a lot of this historic liturgy. And that's across the board. New Protestant nations, Lutherans, Reformed, Anglican, etc., after the 16th century worked very hard to figure out what to keep and what to throw away from the Catholic liturgy. Most of it got purged, even in historically liturgical churches like the Anglicans. So as a result, most Protestant nations found themselves wanting to keep primarily only Easter and Christmas, since those were celebrated in the ancient church and focused on Christ himself and not on the life of a saint. Protestants to this day still celebrate Christmas and Easter usually. What happened, though, is that people still liked the giving of presents. They missed December 6th, to put it mildly. And so what happened in Protestant nations is you see a kind of creativity, if you want to use that word, in trying to come up with ways to keep the giving of presents without keeping St. Nicholas's Day on December 6th. In Lutheran Germany, for example, they liked the idea of the giving of gifts to kids, but again, they got rid of St. Nick, and they decided instead to have baby Jesus be the one to bring the gifts to the kids. They referred to this as the Christkindl, or the Christ child, and he stood in place of Santa, which is where the name Kris Kringle comes from. I always wondered that as a kid myself. His name is Santa, why is he being called Kris Kringle? But it's actually a morphing of the word Christkindl, which is just baby Jesus bringing the presents instead of St. Nick. In England, a different tradition arose during and long after the Reformation, centered around the figure of Father Christmas. Not Santa, though the resemblance is certainly there for some, but more the embodiment of the Christmas spirit itself, or the merry season. Father Christmas wore green, and he had a long beard, and he sort of presided over the month of December as a reminder to laugh.
Just in case anybody's wondering and hasn't read Charles Dickens, that's the interpretation of Christmas present, Father Christmas.
From the story of A Christmas Carol.
Yep. So that's the origin of that,
story.
apparently. I'm sorry?
I love that story.
It's a good book. It's a good book.
Eat and drink to celebrate the season, as well as to be generous to those around you. For a long portion of English history during and after the Tudors, therefore, there is no mention of St. Nicholas or Catholic tradition, at least not from the royal family or the Anglican Church. Instead, the Christmas season was stretched over the entire month, culminating not only in December 25th, but eventually in Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, on into the new year. Now, Boxing Day is that same move that Protestants do, where they change liturgy into a Protestant practice. The day after Christmas was originally the...
But that's not a bad thing. I don't know why everybody always harps on that like it's a bad thing. The Catholics did that with the pagan holidays. Protestants are doing it to them. It's the same thing. It's like, just... why is morphing stuff around of changing cultures and times bad?
Hold on. Quick question.
Yeah.
I've always kind of like had a problem understanding what's the difference between a Protestant and like a Catholic.
Well, that's a lot of history. So basically, Martin Luther nailed his 99 Thesis. I think it was on the church door or something. And it's basically, he thought the Catholic Church needed a bunch of reforms. And so the church didn't really want to discuss those reforms, so they didn't deal with it too kindly, to paraphrase a bunch of stuff. And Luther wound up going into hiding, and that whole conflict eventually led to a whole new branch of Christianity, Protestantism, which evolved into a bunch of denominations. And the Catholic Church has just kind of been the Catholic Church, from then on. So, yeah. That's a huge history.
Yeah.
Eric Metaxas has a book called Martin Luther. If you want to learn kind of the details of all that, you can go check out his book. It's pretty good.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So the Protestants broke away from the Catholic Church, and there was a big handful of conflicts in Europe over the years, to put it mildly. But
Yeah.
that's the big thing. So, yep.
Feast of St. Stephen.
Thank you.
Now it's Boxing Day and non-liturgical. Until the 1800s, in fact, England largely considered this Christmas-tide season as a whole. Father Christmas would sometimes be mentioned, sometimes not. There was no Santa Claus or St. Nick.
At Fiverr, we offer...
I know.
Maybe one day
Is the
we'll
famous
get
song
to...
Good King Wenceslas, written in the 19th century, that tells the story of a lord giving to the poor.
Sorry, did you say something, Trevor?
Huh?
Thought you said something, sorry.
Well, yeah, I was thinking maybe one day we'll be able to talk about one of those ads and annoy everybody with our faces and be like, you could buy this product.
Oh, yeah, if we have products of our own, we can do read-throughs. It'll be agonizing. It'll be great.
And then people will just skip around on our video.
Yep.
It's like when you watch some of the videos that have been on for a while, the most replayed parts are skipping their personal ads.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I understand doing read-throughs. Like, you got to make money. You know, I think they're going on a little too long now. Like, you're getting into, like, 2 minutes. Like, just...
Yeah.
When I was in radio, it was 30 seconds to a minute. Those were the only two spots you had, and that forced people to be concise. I think people need to learn to be concise again. I mean, you know.
Well, I mean, for some of those people, you know, that one ad is paying for their entire video, you know.
Yeah, so maybe that's what it is. They gotta
That's
make
their
it count.
That's their entire month, if you will.
Yeah.
Of living.
No, people got to make money. I understand that for sure, but I mean, good night. There's got to be balance, man. There's, you know, you gotta keep.
Right.
What good is having an ad for 2 minutes if people aren't going to listen to it?
Yeah.
You know, you need to be concise so people actually stay engaged. But that's a whole other conversation.
And
We'll
being
get there when we get
generous
there.
with the Christmas
Maybe,
spirit
hopefully.
during the Christmas time.
Almighty willing.
It's not Santa. It's about the generosity of spirit. The other feature of the English Christmas season in history is that it was a notoriously large party season. Remember what I said about Saturnalia and the time of misrule? Well, that does live on in English heritage. It was often a wild time, to say the least. In fact, one of the things you often hear is that Puritans, or sometimes the royal family, were anti-Christmas at times. Well, this is why. It wasn't that they didn't like the remembrance of the birth of Jesus. Christmas was in England a lot like Mardi Gras in America, let's put it that way, which ironically is also a Catholic holiday that has turned into a bit of drunken debauchery. But that's another video. But those are the extreme stories, the time of misrule, the partying, the drunkenness during the English Christmas. At its best, English Christmas is known for the best of its parties, its food, and its focus on merrymaking throughout the country. But the focus is on Christmas spirit in general. More on that in a minute. The third and last one that I'll talk about is in the Netherlands. There, St. Nicholas is not only carried on after the Reformation, but the story of St. Nick is expanded and continues even to this day. And that link is important. For the Dutch, Nicholas is known as Sinterklaas, which is, of course, the origin of the phrase Santa Claus as you and I know it. He has several of the features that would later become Santa, but it's not quite as clear as you think it is. You see, in the Netherlands, during the time of the Renaissance and a little bit after, it was said that Santa Claus lived in Spain throughout the year preparing gifts. Now, Spain at the time owned the Netherlands, and so the connection there was very obvious to them. He was back at the homeland, making gifts, and he came once a year, again on December 6th, to check if the children had been good. And Santa Claus had an adopted orphan boy named Peter, who was a Moor from that time in Spanish history, before the Reconquista removed the Moorish presence as much as possible from Spain.
See, I was very baffled in the previous videos as to why we had the guy named Black Peter running around. I thought it was some... Yeah, I didn't know what in the world was going on with that. So, like, I thought it was some African-American version of the Apostles, and I was like, why? So, apparently it was because of Spain, and the Spains were largely populated by Moors at the time. So, there we go. A little bit of clarity on something that was very confusing to me earlier.
He's clarified.
Yes.
Spain. Santa Claus rode on a carriage drawn by horses, and he would, depending on the story, deposit gifts in wooden shoes in the windows, or young Pete himself would shimmy down the chimney to deliver the presents to the kids.
So Pete would do it. That makes more sense. He's smaller. Got it. All right.
Smaller and younger, yeah.
Okay. We're getting somewhere now. Got a little clarity. Great.
Now, this Dutch tradition, as you can tell, is the origins of a lot of what will become Santa Claus. But it's the same old tradition, only changed and altered just a bit. However, there are two things that we need to point out. In the original Dutch practice, Santa Claus remained a bishop, and he was there to see if the kids were naughty or nice. He is not a magical creature. He is still very much part of the clergy. But also, to this day, the practice of dressing up as Black Pete is deeply problematic. Another story told by the Dutch.
That was awkward. Those videos were very awkward. I'm just going to say that.
That was awkward. Still is awkward.
Is that Black Peter, or Black Pete as he is called, merely has soot on his face from climbing up and down the chimneys. That's not true, though. Historically, he was Moorish. He was of African descent. This story actually originally was more like Robin Hood, and if you're my age, you'll remember the best version of Robin Hood, which is the Kevin Costner version.
Lies.
Where a man from the Crusades
Can't beat it.
has connected with a companion that is Moorish, and they travel together as allies. That was the original Santa Claus. Again, from the Renaissance, it was this idea that a wealthy person living in Spain with an orphan boy at his side would come and bestow benevolence upon the kids there in the Netherlands.
So he's like Batman.
Now,
only with
today,
gifts.
needless to say, there's a lot of controversy about it.
Batman and Robin.
So if you arrive at the 1800s, there really is no Santa Claus. The Dutch practice is, again, still largely Catholic, still focused on a man from Spain coming to weigh the good and the bad from kids. So where does Santa Claus come from? Well, the simple answer is he's invented in New York. St. Nick and Christmas presents and all of the lore, you might say, behind Santa Claus was invented almost entirely by a few men in New York in the 1800s. And I use the word invent purposefully, because while there are roots and hints of Santa Claus in Europe, as we've already seen, especially in the Netherlands, what happened in New York was, you might say, creating a folk history for the first time. The men involved were largely associated with the New York Historical Society. And if you remember your civics classes, New York was originally New Amsterdam, that's right. There was a long memory there, you see, of certain older traditions from the old world that the wealthy elites in New York felt were ripe for developing a new tradition in America. The society had Dutch roots, and they began to hold annual dinners on December 6th, there's that date again, to recall the original story of Santa Claus, now called St. Nick, minus the kid in blackface. And then, after some rumination on the themes of Christmas and St. Nick, two men in particular, though there are a few others.
On the OBS screen, we're blocking a name because our faces are a little too big. I'll have to fix that next time. But the guy's name is Washington Irving and Clement Clark Moore. Those are the guys he's talking about right now.
Should be credited for starting the ball rolling on modern Christmas. Washington Irving and Clement Clark Moore.
There you go.
Irving, of course, is famous for the stories of Rip Van Winkle and the legend of Sleepy Hollow. But he was a famous writer in his day, and he loved
That's very interesting. So the same guy who came up with Santa Claus is the same guy who came up with Sleepy Hollow. There's a brilliant thought in there somewhere, but I don't know what it is. Trevor, what do you think?
My brilliant thought is just hollow.
Just hollow?
Well, you said Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow, yeah.
So that's my brilliant thought.
Oh,
Sleepy
okay.
Hollow.
All right, then.
Or just hollow.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is an interesting little factoid.
Dad, to make up things in his histories that were entirely fictional. He seems to like to blend fact and fiction with abandon. Irving created a lot of legendary ideas that we still associate with New York to this day. For example, he came up with the name Knickerbockers to describe the New Yorkers. And he was the first to call New York Gotham.
Oh,
well,
there
in
you
his
go.
history of New York, Irving referenced Saint Nick or Santa.
Okay, there has to be a commonality there.
So
Gotham, Batman, Santa Claus. It's all from the same era.
That's crazy.
That's interesting. That's just fascinating. Okay.
Wait. So, who owns the rights to Batman?
Oh, I don't know. It wasn't Irving who wrote Batman. It was, what was his name? I think Bob Kane, I think. Somebody fact check me if I'm wrong. But I think it was Bob Kane. But still, you're talking about same kind of era in history. That's really interesting. So there's a historical, I don't know what you call it, commonality there. That's really fascinating. So next time somebody says Batman is Santa Claus, you can thank Washington Irving, as if anybody's ever said that. But anyway.
You said it just now.
Well, now it's on the internet, so it's for forever.
Yay.
Yeah.
Over 24 times. In Irving's work, he is still a bishop, and for most of the men in society, they kept that traditional Dutch theme. Only for Irving, Saint Nick was no longer the punisher. He was a jolly old man who loved to spread joy through gifts, and he was also now living in the North Pole. Can't have him coming back and forth from Spain. It was a lot more magical, you might say. But the real explosion of popularity about Santa came shortly thereafter from Clement Moore in his poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." Now, I will say here that there is some debate if Clement wrote the poem or if a man named Henry Livingston did. I won't go into that here, but there is a book that I've linked in the description of this video if you want to read more about it on Kindle.
So go to Ryan Reeves'
I'll
channel.
keep referring to the author of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" as Clement, for convenience though. But Clement was an independently wealthy man, also a part of this elite society, who taught Greek and other languages at General Theological Seminary. And he wrote this poem in the same tradition as Washington Irving and these other men who were discussing this folk story of St. Nick. The inspiration for his poem, it seems, was just simply his imagination. Clement, though, takes the tradition in an entirely new direction, and from this point on, Santa is becoming a real tradition in America. For one, St. Nick is no longer a clergy member. In fact, for Clement, he's not even human. He's a fat elf. Most people don't realize that when they read the poem. He's described as a jolly old elf. He rides on a sleigh drawn by tiny reindeer who each have names. That is also an invention of Clement. There is no Rudolph yet. Rudolph is invented later in the 20th century by a father whose wife was dying of cancer, but the others are there. And no, these reindeer are not Norse in origin. In fact, until this poem, there is zero affiliation with Santa and reindeer in European history. So here in the early 1800s in America, we have the full origination of Santa Claus. Based, to be sure, on older traditions, but frankly a new folk story created in the city of New York. Now, back overseas in Europe, in England, the story has developed during this century as well. This was the Victorian era, and Queen Victoria was the queen of doing things properly, and with a bit more, we might say, pomp and circumstance. Famously, the image of the royal family with a Christmas tree was famous, and suddenly Christmas trees became fashionable in England.
Well, there you go.
That picture caught the eye of Sarah Josepha Hale, who I mentioned in my video on Thanksgiving. And in the 1850s, she published that picture in the Goody's Lady Book, and then added to that over the years all sorts of new traditions for decorating the home for Christmas. Now, it's the 1850s. We've not yet approached the wonders of exterior illumination, but it's coming. But, lo and behold, because of Queen Victoria's picture and the Goodies Lady book, the Christmas tree in the 1850s became part of the American tradition. Likewise, the stories of Santa Claus and his reindeer found their way back over to England and eventually supplanted Father Christmas there as part of now a quintessentially British Christmas. So you have kind of a cross-fertilization. Ideas are moving from England back to America for Christmas, and America sent Santa back to the motherland. So to put it very simplistically, England creates the deeper themes of the Christmas spirit, of generosity, merriment, and the overall, you might say, aesthetic of Christmas that many Americans found appealing. And all of that without Santa. Just see Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol as a great example of this. Published only a decade or two after the New Yorkers started fiddling around with this idea of Santa Claus. Dickens' Christmas Carol is a story of a man, Scrooge, who has lost his sense of Christmas spirit and generosity. Visited by the spirit of Marley, who, by the way, vaguely is in the chains of purgatory or hell for his greed, though it's all given a very secular ring to it. And after Scrooge's visitation by the three ghosts of Christmas, he finally is brimming again with the joy of English generosity and the Christmas spirit. Notice, by the way, no Santa anywhere in sight. In America, though, the lore and the heritage of who Santa was began to grow. And over the rest of the 1800s, that tradition will go back to England and will become a part of British Christmas ever since.
Attention all internet users. Stop seeing ads for free.
Hang on a minute. Gotta mute it.
You could probably use that one.
Nah.
'Twas the night before Christmas, as
you
I
don't want
said,
pie?
describes
I don't want
Santa as an elf. And what happens over the 1800s is that Santa really has no set figure or look, you might say. He has no brand. He is tall sometimes, he is short, he's an elf, he's a human, he wears red, he wears green. It's kind of a cacophony of different ideas. But finally, in the 1930s,
There he is.
the iconic representation of Santa as we know it would not exist were it not for Coke and the work of Haddon Sundblom. By the way, if you want to see a legendary career in graphic design and art, just go Google Sundblom.
And that's where it all went to pot. But anyway.
Or
He
Coke.
literally did everything
Coke.
for the course of his career. He put the Quaker Oats Man on the box. He created Aunt Jemima. He created all kinds of legendary brands. But he also gave Santa his final bona fide image. Sundblom gets rid of the fat elf imagery and instead makes him the jolly fat man with a white beard that we know and love. Rosy cheeks, twinkling eyes, sneaking in to eat a cookie, and leaving gifts under the tree, that newly invented Christmas tree that was now a regular part of the American home. This was all invented in the 1930s. In other words, Santa, as you and I know it, is not even 100 years old. But after Sundblom, there's no going back. This is Santa, at least in the minds of most people who celebrate Christmas.
Well, there you have it, guys.
Holy moly.
Was your mind blown? I don't know.
I'm gonna go cry in a corner right now.
Did that disillusion you?
I'm gonna go behind my Christmas tree here and just cry.
You'd be like, you're back to that 8-year-old boy. You mean Santa's not real? Or however old you were when they finally told you.
I don't remember.
It's regression. It's regression. Oh, my goodness. Well, there you go, guys. That was the actual history of Santa Claus and St. Nick. Now, I think that was a lot more concise than the two videos we watched prior.
Yeah, that definitely put the hammer on the nail, if you were.
Yeah, I like Ryan Reeves, man. He does a good job. So, if you want to watch this video for yourself and kind of see the other two videos that he has on the subject, go visit Ryan Reeves' channel. The video is the History of Santa Claus. So, There you go.
I like
There's
that.
your folklore, which was tainted with corporatism.
I'd like to know personally, like how because you hear a lot of people talk about, the pagans and the Celtics and whatnot, how all that ties into it. Or did he talk about it and I missed it?
I don't think he talked about it. But yeah, there's a bunch of basically integration of different cultures and beliefs and stuff over time. But so that's it. That's
Maybe
it.
we'll get into that later.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this one up. So, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. We're wrapping it up for Christmas.
For Christmas. So, we are at 10:38. Do you want to do a review of the Terminator, or do you want to call it a night?
I do need to stand up and stretch because I had like 3 Charlie horses.
That's
If you
fine.
didn't notice me leaning back real far.
No, that's
that
fine.
was a Charlie horse.
He did. Well, you're sitting on the floor, ain't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. At least the Christmas tree looks good.
Oh, thank
you. It's very decorative, very seasonal. So, yeah, go and stretch, man, and I'll hold down the fort, and then if you're amiable, of course you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you're amiable, we'll do one more and we'll call it an evening.
Okay. I'll be right back.
All right. So, boys and girls, while Trevor is turning off his camera, we will talk briefly about what we're doing. So, the title of the podcast is called Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, and we've been at this for several months, and we have yet to do any fiction, and that's kind of what I do. I write for Mind Matters News, and I do sci-fi reviews. Now, we want to do other videos besides just sci-fi, but we figured we'd start with something that recently came out. And that, or one of my reviews that recently came out on Mind Matters News, and that is a review of the Terminator. And the Terminator just had its 40-year anniversary back in October, which is why why I decided to go ahead and do a review of the franchise. And I would say the first 2 movies are pretty good, but the last one, like after number 2, the franchise just kind of derails. And it's interesting because as I've been doing these review studies, one of the things that's become apparent to me is that it is almost impossible to find the movie Terminator 3. Now, they're saying it is because of a copyright issue. I can't help but wonder if they're kind of trying to bury the movie because of the other films that came out later of all these different timelines and stuff, and they're trying to get rid of that one. But that's a little conspiratorial on my part. We don't need to accept that. I'm just putting it out there in the ether as a faint possibility. So, with that said, let me actually pull up the Mind Matters News article really quick, and we will just jump right into that, assuming I can find it. There we go. That way Trevor can see it. Let me close out this window here, and then pull up this one here, and then fade. Also having to produce at the same time, guys, so you'll have to bear with me. So, yeah, Terminator, the sci-fi classic, 40 years on. The best thing about this first movie is that it adheres to the classic view of futuristic robots, cold, callous machines that are bent on one objection. And the reason we put that heading on there is because there's a lot of talk about, the computers becoming just like us and, getting a soul and all this and that. So there's a lot of debate about what AI is and what all it can do. And from my perspective, I don't think it can do much. I think there's pretty well a cap on how far AI can go. I think it's going to be wonderful when it gets to figuring out how to do coding. And I see a future where video game programmers or whoever can just type in what they want to see and then the computer can code it. And so I think there's a lot of neat things that AI can do, but in terms of it creating the singularity and, replacing humanity, I'm not a fan. I don't think that's actually going to happen. And a lot of people are pretty skeptical of that view, I'd say. And back in the 80s, I think that they still held to the more traditional fear about AI and about robots being hostile. And, of course, there is this kind of caveat that they add in the later films that the robots become self-aware, which I don't think they can actually do. But there have been people out there positing that the robots, whenever they start calculating how to best help humanity, they basically conclude that the best way to help humanity is destroy it. And so they end up launching all the missiles and blowing people up and all this and that. And so there's a lot of catastrophists saying that that's where the robots are inevitably going to go. And this is what the first movie is basically talking about. It's talking about the robots deciding that the only way to protect the world is make sure humanity's out of the equation because humanity's no good and all this. It's kind of a cynical, dire view of mankind, but I would argue that if this is true, it's more the result of the cynicism of the programmer than it is the program. There's a lot of Malthusian sentiments out there in the tech valley, and I think that those sentiments tend to influence how people calculate humanity's worth. So, for example, how do you weigh a philanthropist in comparison to a nuclear bomb? Well, that's kind of a subjective comparison. One could argue that a philanthropist could do way more good than a nuclear bomb could do harm. Some people wouldn't agree with that. Who can say? So there's a debate back and forth, but this holds to a more traditional view that the robots aren't just going to, become like us and get souls and all this and that. They're going to inevitably be hostile and try to supplant humanity in some fashion. So, with that said, we'll just read the next paragraph. One of the franchises that has suffered the modern media meat grinders, the Terminator series, and this is the reference to the recent films that came out, in honor of the 40-year anniversary of this classic movie, which debuted on October 26, 1984, I'm going to review the franchise. The quality of the first film has stood the test of time, comfortably launching more movies and spin-off series than the Alien franchise. And to be fair, it has been much more successful than the Alien franchise. Pretty much every Alien movie that came after Aliens has been just complete crap. Romulus was okay. I probably gave it a better review than it deserved when it came out, just because I'd been saturated in the crappy films for so long. I was impressed that something mediocre actually came out. But yeah, the Romulus one was all right, and it gives me some hope for the Alien franchise in the future. But where things sit right now, the Alien franchise is not looking very good. It's pretty abysmal. So the Terminator franchise is done significantly better. Terminator 3 is not good, but it's not so bad that it's franchise killing, and that was really the issue of Alien 3. Alien 3 really nuked the franchise, and they had to start all over. They broke their own they broke their own lore, they killed off their main character, they did all these things that basically left the Alien franchise with nowhere to go. And the Terminator franchise, Terminator 3, didn't really do that. It was just kind of a mediocre, bad film. So it's still, like, the Terminator franchise still has life to it. And, the quality of this first film is probably why, because it asked a lot of interesting questions and set a lot of interesting tropes and precedents into the future. So, Mr. Trevor, welcome back.
Thank you.
You finished stretching?
No, but I am back. I was just going to let you keep going till whenever.
Till I ran out of steam?
Yeah.
Yep. So, no, I was just talking, I guess a question to posit to you would be, what do you think about all this AI craze? Like, how far do you think AI is actually going to go? I think it's pretty close to the cap already. I think it's pretty much a lot of hype, and I wouldn't be investing in it right now. I think there's overselling what it can do. I think it's really good for helping with punctuation. It's going to be very good of coding. But if you're talking about anything subjective, like based on the way that they learn, it's kind of hard to explain, but they just understand data. They don't really understand concepts. So, for example, if you have a box in the road of a self-driving car, and this is a bad example, the self-driving cars are better than this. But if you were to have a box in the road, the box only, like the robot only sees the dimensions of the box. It doesn't see a box, per se. Like when we look at a box, we have memories of what a box is. We have memories of opening presents on Christmas morning. We can tell whether or not the box is empty or full most of the time. You know, we have certain concepts that help us identify what an object is, and a computer only has length, width, height, maybe a sensor that can detect density or something like that, but it doesn't understand what a box is fundamentally. And I think that's going to be a real limitation. They can't understand. They're probability mechanisms. They're not really going to understand, you know, what something is conceptually. So, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, really, AI is just a upgraded computer. At the end of the day, it only reads what we tell it to.
Right.
Ones and zeros.
Right. I made a point earlier about people are saying that these AI programs are always concluding that the best way to help humanity is to destroy it. And I posited the idea that that's really more the result of the sentiments of the programmer than the robot. Like, there's no way to objectively weigh the value of a philanthropist or somebody who helps people versus the value of a nuclear bomb. That's a subjective measurement that people can make. The computer really can't. And so a computer is just going to reflect whatever the sentiments of the programmer are.
Yeah.
So, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, if someone who likes humanity and wants humanity to survive, you know, and they create the same AI system as someone who's had a rough go at life, you're going to get two different results.
Yeah. I agree.
So,
I agree. Excuse me. So, all right. So let me see here. Let's watch this opening clip of the Terminator, and I will see what your thoughts are on the film as a whole.
The Terminator, rated R. The #1 movie in the USA is now playing everywhere.
From a future where men must hide underground has come a machine wrapped in flesh who kills but cannot be killed. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Terminator, an assassin from the 21st century sent back through time. His target is a woman who holds the key to the future. Her only hope is a soldier who has hunted the Terminator from the future into the present.
It's not a man. Machine. Terminator.
What does it want to be?
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse.
I'm just going to pause here because, you know, 80s music is awesome. Just want to say that. Just yay 80s. Yay 80s.
Fear. And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator.
So what are your memories of the Terminator, Trevor?
I would be back.
That's it?
What?
Is it just a catchphrase that you recall?
I love catchphrases. Okay, if you haven't learned that by now, I don't know what we're doing.
Well, I was commenting.
We're doing something wrong.
We're doing something wrong, yeah. Well, I was commenting on how the 80s had kind of a dire view or more dour view on technology. This version of a robot's very different than Data that came out in the 90s, you know. The question of whether or not robots can become sentient or just like us or some such thing.
Oh, yeah, well, and back then they were still learning how to use it all.
Yeah.
You know, how to program things and whatnot. So they really thought that we'd be a lot farther than we are technology-wise anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of great memes about that.
Like with Back to the Future, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching a guy saying that we're closer to Back to the Future than we realize. I still don't buy it. They're claiming that there's going to be flying cars out here before too long. I'm like, yeah, well, I'll believe it when I see it, you know? They've been I've been waiting for the flying car since I was a child. It hasn't showed up yet.
Yep,
So,
it's way past, what was it, 2015? Or 2012?
I don't remember. See, this is going to be a mark of shame on me for, even though I write sci-fi reviews, I haven't actually seen the Back to the Future franchise.
Oh.
I hear it's amazing, but I just haven't, of all the things I've watched, I haven't watched that one.
McFly.
See, that means nothing to me.
You don't know what you're missing.
I'm going to have to, it's on the burner. I'm going to have to watch them.
It'll definitely take you back to the future.
Oh, well, there you go. So, I was also commenting in this review that one of the great things about the Terminator films is that things really are kept simple. I mean, the machine has the orders, it carries out the orders, doesn't really care, what it takes to get that done.
And I like how he talks about, and he said it there in the preview, that he doesn't reason, he doesn't bargain or anything, and that's really where AI is there's no reason or anything to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we really have nothing to be afraid of.
Well, unless some programmer decides that the AI needs to nuke us all.
But that's a programmer. That specific programmer has to be intelligent enough to program the AI to be able to hack whatever system is going
Well, they can
on.
hack whatever. I mean, I'm sure that that's just a matter of time. But, the idea of just the computers being determined to wipe us out, I mean, that's human sentiment. That's not a machine. A machine doesn't really have sentiments, and it can't really develop conclusions based on data. That requires abstract thought. That requires things that can't be translated into binary, like value, Value of a philanthropist versus the value of a nuclear bomb. How do you weigh those two? I mean, a computer can't do that.
No.
And that's completely subject to the program. Programmer who's particularly cynical isn't even going to factor in a philanthropist into the equation. They just won't. They're trained to think of us in a negative light. Think of fellow men in a negative light. And so if anything like that does happen, well, it's going to be people, not robots actually doing the killing.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, anyway. The other thing I wanted to point out, the thing that I think makes the first two movies special, is its treatment of the female protagonist. You got a lot of girl power nonsense going on now, but this movie actually does it right. So let me play this clip, this scene, and kind of show you what I mean.
Guard it for me, Big Buns. We're late.
Just want to point out that pun. That pun's right up your alley, by the way.
She's about to have a bun day.
I'm in it, so am I.
It's foreshadowing.
Honey, can I have that coffee now, please?
Yes, sir. Okay, who gets the burly beef?
I ordered barbecue beef. I think that's mine, but I didn't
He
order
gets the
fries.
barbecue beef. Mine's the chili beef deluxe. Okay, who gets the burly beef?
Miss, we're ready to order now.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good.
I'm so sorry. This isn't real leather, is it?
Nice going. Got to give you the tip.
Look at it this way. In 100 years, who's going to care?
So I like
Dun,
that
dun,
scene.
dun.
Yeah, I like that scene a lot. And I like it because you compare that to Terminator 2. That's this little thing called character growth. You start out with a character that's in a weak place, kind of having a bad day, and then, there's all these promises that she's going to, be some prominent figure in some global war in the future. But she doesn't start there. She has to grow into that role. And you see later in the film where she's kind of encouraging Kyle Reese to, get up when he's hurt and all this. These hints that she's going to be this leader, but you don't see it at the beginning. And that's called good writing, because you have a character that starts out in a bad place and then ends up becoming stronger before the end. It's called character growth. But you don't see that, especially in the later Terminator films. Everybody just starts out dour and tough and jaded and all this and that, and there's no beginning point. And that's why I think a lot of these strong female leads don't work, because they are unwilling to show those characters weak at the beginning, and they are unwilling to show them growing into the role.
Which characters you talk about in the third one?
Well, it's not the third one where that happens. It's 4 and 5. They show Sarah. Well, no, it's not 4. It's 5 and 6, because everybody always forgets about Terminator Salvation. But in the later ones, Genesis and Dark Fate. Salvation? What I remember of Salvation is I liked it. I think it's underrated. But that's a whole other conversation. When you get to Dark Fate and Genesis, Sarah Connor is all like tough and jaded and, all this and that. And she's the hero of the story rather than John Connor, And so they just couldn't abide any sort of female or any sort of male contribution to the story, so they had her just as tough as can be right at the outset, and people don't buy into characters like that regardless of their gender. I've made this point, people forget that, like, even in a movie like Rambo, in First Blood, he's a traumatized war vet. Yeah, he's tough, but he's broken and damaged and has flashbacks and all the rest of it. Like, he starts out in a weak place, and actually by the end of First Blood, he's completely broken.
Yeah.
He has that speech, "Nothing is over, nothing. You don't just turn it off." That's like one of the best speeches in all cinema, in my opinion.
Oh,
it's a great speech. But the point is, by the time you get to First Blood, that character is completely broken. And then when you get into Rambo Part 2, that character starts to get built back up. The female lead in that one going, "You're not expendable," giving him kind of the encouragement to actually go and fight. And she actually ends up saving his life, and he gets the resolve to whoop the bad guys by the end. And then by Rambo 3, you've got Rambo kind of in his prime, fighting the bad guys and all this. But the characters don't start there. They grow. And they've completely forgotten that with protagonists.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts, good sir?
You hit every nail on the head. I agree with you.
Well,
I'm gonna have to go back and watch the rest of. Like, just watching these clips makes me want to rewatch the Terminator again.
Makes you very nostalgic.
Yeah, it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the last time I watched it, but. Yeah. I haven't even seen the newer ones.
Don't. They just ruin it for you. I mean, they're absolutely awful.
I think the last one I watched was... Is Christian Bale still John Connor in the newer one?
Oh, no. He was like John Connor for 1. And they should have kept that whole scenario. Like, I was excited for the new Terminator movies when they came out, because I thought we were finally going to see the robot war. They keep teasing this robot war over and over again, and we never see it. We see it for one movie. One blasted movie.
Yeah.
And I liked it because they fixed one of the major plot holes in Terminator 3, which is John Connor dies. Terminator 3 is really the start of all this, like when the girl power stuff kind of starts taking a turn for the worse, because it was fine with Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
They did Sarah Connor right. She starts out as a waitress, and she starts out as kind of passive. Her experiences with the Terminator make her, like, they encourage her to train, and with Kyle not there, she has to learn how to do it on her own, and she's somewhat damaged because of her experiences, but she has to overcome all that too. And, she grows into being a leader. And, of course, they just nix all that with the newer ones. In Terminator 3, they kill off Sarah Connor for reasons I do not know why. She dies of leukemia or something. And that was a dumb decision by itself. Maybe she couldn't do it because of the contracts or something like that. I don't know. I just wouldn't have mentioned her then. You know, say her and John had a falling out and, you know, imply that they're going to patch things up by the end of the movie. They didn't need to go the way they did. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they did fine with Sarah Connor. Like, that's how a female protagonist should be. But, you know, when they get into Terminator 3, they get rid of Sarah Connor, and then they start talking about this woman that's supposed to be John Connor's wife, and of course, you know, she just magically knows how to pick up a gun and kills a drone right out of the bat, and John's like, "You remind me of my mother," which was very Freudian and weird, because you know they're going to get married, and it's just like, okay, so you're marrying your mom. That's wonderful. So anyway, so it starts to go off the rails of Terminator 3, but, you know, Salvation fixed it. You know, they got rid of the weird caveat that John was going to die in the future or whatever, and there was a change in the timeline that altered that, if I remember correctly. And so they got rid of that issue, and then they put John back in the center seat, which was fine. And then they just didn't make any... I guess the movie did poorly. I'm not really sure why, but I guess it did poorly. And so they tried to reboot it a few years back, and they had Sarah Connor as tough and all this and that, but they didn't have Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, which was frustrating. And then, of course, she's much older then, but still, they shouldn't have done the reboot thing. They should have just, you know, kept her as the character and showed her in the future or something. Anyway, but they had this character, Sarah Connor, start out as this strong female lead, instead of the waitress she was in the first movie. Which, if you're going to do a reboot, you got to rebuild the character, and they didn't want to put in the work. So that was frustrating.
Huh?
Yeah, it's nuts. But we're talking about Terminator 1, and I keep ranting about the other films. Terminator 1's a good movie, so it's like, how many times do you say this is a really good film over and over again? So, I guess to end it, I'll posit the major story question that, or the scenario that's laid out at the end, and try to get your thoughts on it. So basically, at the end of the Terminator, spoilers, Kyle Reese dies, but he's the father of John Connor. So John Connor actually spent Kyle Reese into the past, knowing he was going to die, and knowing that was what was going to spark Linda Hamilton to become the female leader that she eventually becomes. So in essence, this gets back to the time travel stuff you were talking about at the beginning of the stream.
Right.
You know, you've got a time loop. Sarah Connor is the leader of the Resistance and gives birth to John Connor. But none of that would have happened if the Terminator hadn't been sent back and Kyle Reese hadn't been sent back.
Exactly.
And Terminator 2 plays on this theme even further, because it's actually the Terminator's tech, like what survived when Linda Hamilton crushed the Terminator at the end of the first film. That tech is what Skynet uses to create itself, essentially. So without the Terminator being sent back, you still get Judgment Day. And the thing that made the first two films so intelligent is they basically destroyed the time loop that was created by the first time jump. They had a completely encapsulated story. They should have just ended it, because none of it would have happened if the Terminator hadn't been sent back in the first place.
Yeah.
You know? But then it gets kind of confusing. Of course, time travel theories are always confusing. That's why I don't really like to use them. But I thought the first Terminator did it right, because they left it ambiguous, and they let you kind of do the head scratching on your own after the film, which is really the only way to do a time travel film. Like, once you start weeding into the details, it doesn't really work.
Yeah. You don't mess with time.
Well,
unless you're AI.
Unless you're AI, yeah. So what are your thoughts? You have any theories about time travel or anything interesting you might want to comment on the concept?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't recommend time traveling. You could really screw it up.
So you would subscribe to the butterfly effect. You step on the butterfly's wings, you cause a hurricane somewhere else?
I thought the butterfly effect was you reincarnate back into yourself, but it's a different timeline. Like a whole different all these different things happen, so it's a completely different resulting.
Yeah, no, the butterfly effect is basically when you create the tiniest of changes in the past.
Yeah.
That has a cumulative exponential ripple effect into the future. And so, you can end up turning all of humanity into a toad if you screw with evolution, for example, by killing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And I don't really like that theory myself. I kind of strangely liked Avengers Endgame approach of it, because you have to have all the preceding events that lead the people to go to the time travel thing in the first place. And then you also have to have the events in the future, which technically happened in the past because it's affecting the past. And so what you eventually get is a whole new timeline. But you would have to have completely separate timelines to make the whole thing work, because those loops, they would just implode on themselves. So, I kind of like to if that even makes any sense. It's all screwy when you start talking about it.
Well, they get into it with Loki. Have you seen that show?
I haven't. I've been depressed ever since Endgame ended.
Oh, well, I would recommend watching Loki, because they delve into that quite a bit. So, spoiler. There's a lot of spoiler alerts while we're talking about that one.
Well, that's fine. We can talk about it. I'm probably never going to watch it. I hear it's very girl power-esque and into that MCU stuff.
Well, MCU stuff, yes. Girl power, Loki is actually like main power, or the main character.
Doesn't get beat up needlessly by a girl or something?
Yeah, but she's just being an asshole more than anything.
I haven't seen the show, so I've just seen the commercial where the girl's like racking him or beating him up for some reason.
Oh yeah, that's the female Loki. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, the
didn't bother you?
No.
Okay.
No, because basically Loki met female Loki, and they had a fight, and she kicked his butt because he was like, "What's going on?"
So she took him by surprise.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. He did fight back, and she did wind up kicking his butt, anyways. And so I guess you could tie that in with girl power, but I wouldn't.
Okay.
It was a fair fight.
It was a fair fight. Okay.
But I guess, I don't really remember there really being any girl power stuff. There was several females in it, but
yeah, well, that's fine.
But yeah, no, they go into the time traveling quite a bit, and basically the people in track of time snatch Loki and get onto him for traveling through time, more or less, and messing with that stuff, because they wanted certain things to happen a certain way.
Gotcha. So they go with the in-game's whole multiple timeline theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Loki's trying to get out of that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't mind the whole Terminator time loop theory. Again, if you keep it to the end of the film and you keep the loop contained, then it kind of works, sort of. It's real, like a head scratcher, you know what I mean? I think it's the way John Connor puts it in the sequel. It's like, they don't exist if the time jump doesn't happen, but, they never would have existed. The war never would have happened in the first place if the time jump hadn't happened. So it's kind of, it's a really weird thing because you need the past to instigate the future event, but without that future event, you don't get the past.
Well, it's like, in the second one, when she goes after dude that found the arm,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember his name. If she had not have gone after him, would things have happened the way they did later?
Well, presumably, yeah, because he would have invented the technology as if nothing had happened. But because she tried to kill him, because John and the other Terminator stopped him, he goes and destroys his own tech. See, they wiped out Judgment Day and stopped it at the end of the second one, and that worked because it created a tight loop.
But did they really stop it, or did they just postpone it?
Well, that's what the third one says. Third one says that they postponed it.
Yeah.
But see, that doesn't make any sense. How did they postpone it if all the means that they had, that Skynet or the company had to create Skynet, if all that stuff was destroyed and they had no more research to go off of, how did they create the system? The third one basically says Skynet became software, and it was impossible to stop at that point. But that just makes everything, that just adds a whole other component to it. Yeah, it's a little dated, but just a little bit. So anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, no, this first one is very good. The second one is very good.
Highly recommended.
Yeah, and I have an article that goes into more detail on it on Mind Matters News and on Substack. You can find it at GaryPaulVarner.com or MindMattersNews.com. Either way, I am currently in the middle of a review series for Terminator 3, and I plan to go through the whole franchise. So,
I highly recommend number 3.
I don't hate it.
Unless you're a kid. Don't watch it if you're a kid.
I don't hate it, but it ain't great. It's bad, but it's not franchise killing bad. Like, I will forever rant about the Alien franchise, and specifically Alien number 3, because it takes a special kind of suck to kill a franchise indefinitely. Like, I can only think of 2 movies off the top of my head that just murdered not just the movie itself, but the entire franchise, and that'd be Aliens 3 and The Last Jedi. Like, franchise killing movies. That's a special kind of suck.
How does The Last Jedi kill the series?
You get rid of Luke. You get rid of any cause to even care about Star Wars.
Oh.
Which that's a whole other thing. You need to watch Muller's videos on The Last Jedi. There are so many problems in that movie. It is insane. I mean, it's just crazy.
I thought Luke just kind of went into the... What problem would that be? I don't know.
Yeah, I
kind
think
of like what Obi-Wan did.
Well, he became a Force ghost, but that's... A, that shouldn't happen. B, it's not just that. It's... Ryan... It's so hard to explain in this. Rian Johnson basically killed every plot point Abrams had set up and left the next director with nowhere to go. So, that's the thing, is you had all this set up in the first one, which the first one wasn't good either, but J.J. Abrams had put in all these mystery boxes and all these different things to set the next one up, and to basically set up the whole trilogy. And then Johnson kills Luke, who's supposed to train Rey, but doesn't. Then he kills Snoke, who's supposed to be the main antagonist, but isn't. And so Abrams is like, well, what the heck do I do with this movie now? So he ends up bringing Sidious back because he can't bring up a random baddie for the third movie. And so he's just stuck with nowhere to go. And of course, if you bring Sidious back, then you've got a whole bunch of questions about how to kill Sith and all the rest of it. I mean, he just, like, a really bad movie that wrecks a franchise kills its own lore.
Well, who exactly is Darth Sidious?
The Emperor.
Are you sure?
Yeah, as far as I know, nobody's said otherwise.
Well, there's speculation that it's Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's a silly theory, in my opinion. But I've heard that. It would have been hysterical, but I don't think that's where they were going with it. So, but I don't know. I mean, I thought they were going to do something big with Jar Jar Binks. I mean, he had this uncommon luck and everything like that. I thought he was going to be a major character, but I guess the fans really hated him, so they dropped whatever they were going to do.
Yeah.
So
there's a video I've seen that took a deep dive on that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I ought to send you that video.
Yeah. For sure.
I'll have to find it. I don't know if I could find it. It was a long time ago. Like, wow. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
We got any final thoughts on the Terminator?
I love them. I've only seen up to, I think, is Christian Bale's.
So Salvation.
When he was
Yeah.
John Connor. That was the last one I watched.
Gotcha. All right. Well, guys, this is our Terminator review where we barely talked about the Terminator. That's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, that's good, man. So, all right, guys. I think we're going to end the live stream here. And then we're going to end this episode. So thank you all very much for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's been the episode. And you got any final thoughts for the live stream, assuming anybody's watching?
Thank you for watching. If you did watch. If you didn't, that's fine. You can watch it later.
Yep.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share whatever else you can do to help us out. Would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, that way we have more time. We don't have to do these awkward transitions. So.
Amen.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.